And we are live on the pre-show of today's 220-1101 A Plus study group. Hello, everyone. Hello, chat room. Hello, folks watching on the replay. Thanks for joining us. It is 11:50. We got about 10 minutes. Kind of hard to see that. It's so dark. Let's turn that up a little. There we go. I didn't want to go that far. Let's keep it 11:50. That means 10 minutes until we get started. Let's do a quick check. We are recording down here. Stream is up over here. Audio looks good. Check, check, check. So everything, I think, is set up properly. We'll see how it goes. Hello, chat room. See if I could spin the chat room over a little bit. That's a little bit better. Is that in my line of sight? It is not. All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for being here. There's Virginia checking in. Downtown Houston is here. Thanks for being here again. Oh, we got lots to go through today. All 1101 content. I have been so busy. I've been writing questions, I don't know, forever. It just seems like when you get into the mode of writing the questions for the practice exams books, it's just constant motion. That's what's going on right now. Hello, Argentina and Denver and Louisiana and Tacoma, Washington and Washington, D.C. Now, is Tacoma Washington or Washington? Is it Washington, D.C. or Washington, D.C.? We do this every time. Hello, Africa and the Caribbean and Springfield, Missouri. Minneapolis is here. Pennsylvania is here. Indianapolis is here. Hello, Nassau, Bahamas. Hello, Idaho. Croatia. And, of course, Panama City Beach. They're on Highway 98, hanging out. It's a nice day for that. Although, what's the weather like now? Here, it is going to storm, well, in the afternoon. It's Florida in the summer. It storms in the afternoon. So about 4 or 5 o'clock, we're going to get some nice storms coming through. And then that's when everything in here gets unplugged. And then the storm goes by, and then we plug everything back in, and we go back to work. Sort of how it works. That's a normal summer in Florida. So if you're in Florida, that's what that's about. Just constant unplugging of things. You're just spending the summer unplugging, plugging back in. Unplugging, plugging back in. That's kind of how it works. It's kind of how that goes down. Hello, Tampa and Sicily and L.A., which I'm assuming is not Lloyd Acres. Hello, South Africa and Nashville. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Lots going on. Folks from everywhere checking in. Thank you for being here. Whidbey Island, Washington. We got Dallas, Texas, South Carolina. Frederick, Maryland. Oh, is it rainy right now? So it's rainy where you are? That's the way it goes sometimes. Here in Florida, in the summer, it gets so hot that all of the evaporation from the warm state of Florida gets all of that water into the air, and eventually the water has to come back down. So usually it spends the first part of the day getting all the water there, and then the second part of the day returning it to me. So that's how that goes. Hello, Charles. Well, I'm new to this. I'm interested in learning CompTIA. Where do I start? Well, this would be a fine place to start. We'll give you a quick overview in the first few minutes of the live stream. This is not the live stream, by the way. For those who have tuned in, the live stream starts in about 6 minutes. 6 minutes, 15 seconds. This is the pre-show. This is me making sure that cameras are set. This is how it will normally work. But this is me making sure cameras are working. Got a little bit of there's some light spill that I'd love to get rid of, but it's hard to get rid of it because the camera's back here, but the light is right here. So it's hard to get rid of the spill that's in this corner. I can see it on mine. I don't know about yours. I'd love it to be more crystal clear, but it's hard without I don't have a barn door for that light. So that's the way it goes. We'll figure it out. We'll find a better way to do it. We're always tweaking. We're always making better. We're always getting there further along. We just never know. We just never know how things are going to go. Hello, Huntsville, Alabama, and Dallas, Texas, and Maryland, and Nigeria, and Euless, Texas, and Kuwait, and Calgary, Alberta. I'll let Mrs. Professor Messer know. We've got Cumberland, Maryland. Welcome. Bucharest in Romania. Fresno, California. What is only 175 degrees at 5 o'clock in the morning now? That was my big trip to Fresno, because I went out and I went to see the big trees out in California, stayed in Fresno. It's warm there. You folks are You folks are strong. You are strong people coming in from Fresno. Because we got up at 5 to catch a flight. We go outside. And we thought it was 3 in the afternoon. Not sure what that was about. Hello, McKinney, Texas, and Memphis, and Ghana, and Ventura, California. Bradenton, Florida. Florida checking in. More Florida. That's how it usually works. We got about 4.5 minutes to go. How are we looking picture-wise? We're looking pretty good. All Q&A. We'll do Q&A the first hour. I've got new questions for you. Plenty of good stuff. The second hour, we open up the chat room, and I'll take questions about, well, anything you would like. We can talk about A+. We can talk about security. We can talk about IT. We can talk about gaming. We can talk about electronics. We can talk about, we can talk about the weather. We will not talk about politics. We will not talk about, hopefully anything that's too insightful. Not insight in this, but inciting, insightful, inciting a riot in my chat room. We don't want to do that. There's plenty of places that you can go online and talk to your heart's content about how politics is and the man keeping you down or whatever it happens to be. Because that's where I'd be. I'd be on the site telling everybody the man was keeping me down. It's just how it normally goes, isn't it? That's one of those where, do I consider studying A+ as an investment? Well, perhaps not the studying part. I guess the studying is an investment towards the certification. More important to have the certification. I consider having an A+ certification to be an investment. And only until you get that certification is there any value to a third party. There's certainly value in studying the content. And there are people that go through the entire A+ course and they never take the exams because that's not what they wanted to do. They just wanted to learn more about the technology, and that's all they need. Then they go off to whatever the next thing is. But the real value of any certification, at least broadly speaking, is how that certification is perceived or how that certification is desired by third parties. So hopefully the A+ certification is one people would be getting because people are asking for it in job descriptions. People are trying to hire more A+ certified people. It's listed or stated or part of the requirements for the job fit perfectly into the things you learn when you get your A+ cert. So that's sort of the idea behind this is what certification do you get? You get whatever certification makes sense for the people that want to hire you. I don't know what that will be in your particular geography where you happen to live. For the jobs that are available, are they asking for the A+? Are they asking for skills you would learn for having the A+? Or are they not asking for any of this? There would be a different answer to that question in probably each of those scenarios. Hello, King. Thank you for the $5 super chat in the pre-show, the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. King writes, been studying for almost 2 weeks, watching videos, very helpful, much love, Prof. Almost ready for my A+ part 1. 2 weeks, you're almost ready. You must be crushing it. You must be killing it. Congratulations on getting started, for getting into it, for keeping it going. You know, this is a long process, this certification, because there's 2 exams. There's a lot of content. There's a lot going on. And thank you for the $5 super chat. I also want to thank Kaylin in the chat room for the $5 super chat, who says, thank you for the work you put into all of this. Help me pass my N10008 Network Plus certification. Congratulations, Kaylin, on the Network Plus. That's always a good one to have in your pocket. I've always said Network Plus kind of covers the entire basis of everything you would ever do in IT because you're always touching the network. It's just a very good all-around cert to have. So congratulations on that. And thank you also for the $5 super chat. Christopher asks, is this session for the A+ 1001 or is it for the 1101? Well, there's obviously a little bit of overlap between the two, but this is specifically going to be for the 1101. We've transitioned our study groups over to the new series of the A+. So today is the 1101. On Thursday is the 1102. Of course, we got about 3.5 years worth of replays for the 1001 study groups. You can always go back in time and watch all of those. So you've got options. It's always good to have options. Let's bring up a presentation. We get a green light. Yes, we do. What we don't have is that on the screen there. That looks good. This looks good. I think we're ready for a study group because it is the top of the hour. Let's get this started right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2022 Professor Messer 220-1101 A+ study group. It's our monthly study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And then online, you're able to lock in your answers, and we'll see how well we do with some of the things I'm asking. Some of what we'll go through today deals with many different kinds of topics. We'll talk about exactly what we'll be going through here in just a moment. This is perhaps, if we really get into the certification details of this, this is the part that I really like, which is going through and really deciding, do I really know what's in this content? Do I really understand what I've learned? And hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on some of that, figure out today if this is something you happen to know. If you would like to follow along with us, we have, of course, online a link for you. Pop open a new browser window and go to the link professormesser.com/QA. There'll be a question waiting for you when you get there. There's also a link you can use, or an app you can use. So go to your favorite app store, download the Socrative Student app. That's the name of the app. And once you start that up, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, same as my domain name, ProfessorMesser. You do all of that, and there'll be a question waiting for you. It's actually a question from last month. The question asks this. It says, an administrator is installing an operating system onto a cloud server. Which of the following would best describe this cloud model? Is it SaaS, IaaS, VDI, metering, or PaaS? Now, if you think you know the answer, our standing rule is not to answer in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the link that's on your screen, pop open that browser window, and go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. And we'll talk about what that answer happens to be in just a bit. Stick around, and we will go through all of those details. Well, thank you for being here. We're not able to have these study groups without your participation. Otherwise, it would just be me talking into the ether. So thanks for being here and joining us. It's always kind of fun to go through these questions, especially since I write all of these questions brand new every month. You've never seen them before. I've never given them to anyone before. It's all something very new. But while we're not doing one of these live streams, you can always watch any of our training videos. Of course, all of our 1101 and 1102 videos are all completed. They are available. They are online, and they are free to watch. You simply go to professormesser.com/YouTube, and you'll find playlists for everything. We also have a daily A+ pop quiz question. You can find those on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. And if you like your question with a pretty picture, you can find it at professormesser.com/Instagram. And they are in a carousel. So you get the question, you can swipe and see the answer, and you can swipe again and see the pretty picture. I try to fit in pictures from all over the world, so you get a little flavor of what it might be to travel around and see some of the sites that are out there. Also, want to let you know that if you're watching this for continuing education unit credit, feel free to stick around. If you have no idea what I'm talking about in relation to CEUs, that's okay. Once you earn your certification, a lot of people like to gather these CEUs to use for renewals. So this is something that would only apply to you if you already have one of the CompTIA certifications. So plenty to go through there. But listen, somewhere in this first hour, I'll give you instructions on how you can get an email from me that certifies that you were here watching this entire event. Now, if you've been online, you'll notice that there's a lot of A+ exams out there right now. What's going on with that? So let's step through these. There are 2 series of exams that you could take right now. You have a choice. You could either take the 1000 series or the 1100 series. The 1000 series consists of the 220-1001 and 220-1002 exams. Those are the 2 you would take to earn your A+ certification. Those exams have been out since January the 15th of 2019. Remember those days back then? This is also, and perhaps more important for us today, an exam series that will retire. It will be gone. You will not be able to take this exam anymore after October the 20th of 2022. That's October. As we sit here in August, September, October. So about 2.5 months away at this point as we sit here on August the 2nd. That's not a lot of time. If you're starting your studies right now, 2.5 months, not a great deal of time to be able to fit in 2 separate, very comprehensive certification exams. So if you're starting your studies right now, this would probably not be the series that you would take. We'll tell you in a moment which one you should take. The exam objectives themselves are exactly the same. The requirements are the same for both the 1000 and the 1100 series. The 1000 series is a 90-minute per exam, so both of those exams are 90 minutes long. You need to earn a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900 on your 1001, and you need to earn a 700 on the 1002. And once you are certified, even though the exams are retired in October, as long as you pass both of these exams, you're certified for 3 years. So it really doesn't matter what they do to the exams. Once you're certified, you've got the certification. You'll never take the exams again, most likely. You'll be renewing your certification through other methods. So they could change the exam every day at that point if they wanted to. It would not matter to you because you would be certified for 3 years. Now, if you are just starting your studies and you're thinking, October is not a lot of time, well, first, you would be correct. And secondly, you may want to adjust your studies so that they are working towards the 220-1101 and 220-1102 exams. Those were released in April of 2022. That's the April we just went through. These exams will be around for a while. We estimate that they'll be around through about November of 2025, which means as we sit here in August of 2022, you have plenty of time. When you say that, it comes up quick, doesn't it? Get your exams as soon as you can. So if you're starting your exam studies, these are the 2 exams you should be studying. You cannot mix and match between the previous and the current versions. For example, you have the 220-1001. You can't pass that and then go take the 220-1102. Doesn't work that way. Both exams that you take and pass must be from the same exam series. That's very important. So make sure you make a decision about which one. I would hate to see you take the 1001 and then run out of time, and then you'll have to start all over again with the 1101 and 1102. I don't want to see you waste your time or your money, so make sure you decide which one you want to go with right now and make sure all of your exam materials match the exam version that you're planning to take. Notice that the exam requirements are exactly the same for the 1101 and 1102. And of course, as soon as you pass this one, you're also certified for 3 years. So there's no better set of exams or worse set of exams. You earn the same certification regardless which exam series you take. The real question is really about how much time you have. So if you think you will not be able to pass both of these exams by October, or you're simply getting nervous just thinking about trying to get all of this done through October, because that's what I would be doing. I'd be sweating. I'd be just thinking about it. How could I possibly get this done by October? If you're that person, the 1101 and 1102 are the 2 exams that you should be considering to take. Make sure you check and see that they are available in the ProfessorMesser.com/objectives. Now, I will tell you, because we've done this for a number of exam series so far, there will be people taking their 1001 and 1002 exams all the way up until the last day. So if you're one of those folks where you are pushing to get this done to October 20th, there's lots of people out there are in exactly the same boat. Don't feel like you're the only one doing it. There are a lot of people working their way to getting that cert, especially if you've been working for a while. So you get to make the decision there. If you have any questions or need any clarification on that, feel free to ask in the second hour. I will let you know that the structure of the 1101 and 1102 exams are exactly the same as the 1001 and the 1002 exams. It almost at first glance doesn't seem like much has changed, but I will tell you under the surface that quite a bit of the content has changed. So these are very different. You want to be sure that if you're studying from the 1000 series exams, that you are using the 1000 series materials. You do not want to be in a position where you are studying from the wrong books and the wrong content. You will do very bad on the exam, even though the structure of the exams seems to be identical to the previous. Underneath the surface, the content is nothing like the originals. There's quite a bit of overlap, but there's enough that's different that would make a very dramatic impact on your final score. So make sure you know about that. Also let you know that if you're watching this, there is a video replay available immediately afterwards on YouTube. That's something that happens automatically. There's also an audio-only replay available in podcast form. You can find the links to add this to your podcast listening program at professormesser.com/podcast. You can also listen from that page from my A+, my Network Plus, and my Security Plus study groups. If you go out to YouTube, you'll probably see this tomorrow. It'll be added to the YouTube video description. My marketing manager, Lori, is going through the entire set and adding timestamps to everything that's there. Make sure you have a look at those. It might be able to find the information you're looking for very quickly. Lori is looking through, probably watching this at 2x speed to find all of those timestamps. Hey, Lori, everybody say hi to Lori. She's busy watching the replay, the chat replay as well. That's how she knows something is going on here. We're busy working somehow with this. When we're not doing these live streams, we are available in our chat. Feel free to stop by. We are on Discord at professormesser.com/Discord, or you can follow the social media links in the upper right of my website. Those will take you to the Discord channel, the Discord server, they call it. That is the Professor Messer Discord. And we've got people there that are studying for their A+, their Network Plus, Security Plus, and people that just hang out because they've taken these exams and they say, I've got some information that could help somebody who's coming up next, which I think is a great community that we're building there on the Discord. Have a look at that at professormesser.com/Discord. I'll also let you know that eventually you will have to take your exams. It's how this usually works out anyway. If you're in the U.S. or Canada, there are discounted vouchers you can find at professormesser.com. That way you don't have to pay the full price over at Pearson VUE. You can instead go to professormesser.com/vouchers and get a voucher as long as you're in U.S., Canada, or one of the U.S. territories. Those discounted vouchers are just discounted. You don't have to have a coupon code. They're not discounted sometimes, but not others. You don't have to find the right time to catch it. You don't have to change anything on your system or delete any cookies. I don't know why all these sites make it so difficult to get a discount. They're just discounted. They're just already there and available for you. And if you purchase the vouchers from my site, you get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a set of tips, tricks, and things I've learned throughout the years that might actually help you when you are studying and perhaps even in the exam itself to maybe get you a few extra points. Something worth reading. That's available for you for free when you buy the discounted CompTIA vouchers directly from professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to that question we asked earlier. That was, an administrator is installing an operating system onto a cloud server. Which of the following would best describe this cloud model? Is it SaaS, IaaS, VDI, metering, or PaaS? I know I'm not really using the right terminology, the right nomenclature for this. If you think you know the answer, you can go to professormesser.com/QA and lock that in. You may notice this is a question from last month. This is our only redo, our rewind question, we call it, from last month's study group, just to see how much we can remember with this. Let's see how you answered. We'll show the results, and you can see that 44% of you say it's IaaS. You have 24% that said PaaS and 23% that said SaaS or SaaS. SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, there's no easy way to say these abbreviations, is it? 8% said VDI and 0% said metering. So the real question is, if we are installing an operating system onto a cloud server, what is this that we are really doing? We are using the model called infrastructure as a service, sometimes called hardware as a service. This is really the basics. The cloud provider gives you networking and storage and CPU and the ability to connect to the internet and send information. Sometimes they provide an operating system, not always. So if you are the one who ends up having to install the operating system, then you are using infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. 46% of you chose infrastructure as a service. 24% of you said platform as a service. With platform as a service, the operating system is already there. In fact, most of the environment is already there. The only thing that isn't there is the application. And platform as a service, you can think of it as a big pile of Legos, and you have to put together the Legos to build your own application. But they're giving you the Legos. They're giving you the table. They're giving you the chair to sit down in. All you have to do is put the Legos together. Software as a service means that they've already done all of the programming on their side. They just give you a login prompt and tell you to log in and use our service. You don't get to program it. You don't get to customize it. You don't get to do anything. You don't get to install the operating system, but you also don't have to maintain it. That is software as a service. 22% of you chose that one. VDI, the virtual desktop interface, is one where you can have your desktop in the cloud. In this particular case, VDI is not what we were looking for. And then lastly, metering, a way to really measure how much somebody is using of one of these cloud services, is important. That wasn't what we were asking for either. We were asking for installing an operating system onto a cloud server. The best model here that fits is indeed the infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, and 46% of you got that one absolutely correct. Yeah, if you go to ProfessorMesser.com, that is a cloud server. And in fact, on that cloud server, I did not install the operating system on my IaaS. That is one of those places where you could almost have a difference there. There are some of those IaaS implementations provide an operating system, some don't, but it's still infrastructure as a service. So that makes perfect sense. If you're someone who's trying to work through the details of this, infrastructure as a service, that was what we were looking for. Let's now shift gears. We'll now do some new questions that you have not seen before. And I'm going to do a question to start with that is not a multiple choice based question. This last one we did was multiple choice, where there was a question and then multiple choices to select. One of the things that they do on the exam, though, is the first series of questions you get, the first handful of questions you get on your exam, will not be multiple choice-based questions. They will be what CompTIA calls performance-based questions, just a fancy name that really says it's anything but multiple choice. It could be fill in the blank. They could put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. They could give you a drag and drop question, a matching question, a question where you have to put things in a particular order. You just never know what you're going to be asked. But anything you would be asked would come directly from the exam objectives. So this is really just another way to ask a question about the things that you already studied. So not really that difficult. I think a lot of people think they're very complex. In some cases, they're relatively simple and straightforward. I have for you a question today that is a performance-based question. For those of you listening on the podcast, this is a visual question. I apologize already, but it is a picture of a motherboard. And on this motherboard, I have 5 different devices or components that I'm pointing to with these arrows. You can't see number 1, but the first arrow up here at the top, this one, that is number 1. My big head's in the way on the picture in a picture, but that is number 1. So as you're filling these in, let me click the button so you're able to fill these in. This is a fill in the blank question. So we have a picture of a motherboard. I'm pointing some arrows to components that are on the motherboard. So if you think you know what these are, follow the link that's on your screen. Right there at the bottom, ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and tell me what those components happen to be. Please do not answer in the chat room. Please don't give me any hints in the chat room. We're going to sit and pretend that we are in the exam ourselves. We are watching this. We are sitting quietly and trying to figure it out, but we have no internet. We have no Google, and we have no friends that we can call. So see what you think numbers 1 through 5 happen to be, and lock in your answers by going to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. And that should answer your question on how do you get in there and answer these questions. Well, that's how you do it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. You'll always know as we go through this exactly what you can do to answer these questions. This is a pretty good one. This is a relatively newer motherboard. It's kind of hard to find a good picture of a motherboard that has everything on it that I would like to have on it. So see if you can step through each one of those. If you've ever worked through installing a motherboard, you've done some troubleshooting with a motherboard, some of these may be relatively straightforward, but some of these might not. And another thing that you might want to do to take this up to the next level is not only tell me what it happens to be, what are these arrows pointing at, but you in your mind should already be thinking, what does that component do for me? How does that work? So that's how we would do it. Yes, this is a fill in the blank, so you can just tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or just separate them by commas. I don't really grade them as much as look through them because it is a fill in the blank. I'll also, in the chat room, thanks to Wayne for the $4.99 super chat, who says, passed my Security Plus last month. I need to have some type of sound effect where we can have a big yay or some type of trumpet fanfare. Congratulations, Wayne, on your Security Plus. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Wayne's thanking me. I'm thanking you right back. So congratulations. That is a tough one to pass as well. So it's even on top of that. That's really great. And Steven in the chat room with another $4.99 super chat, who says, thanks to your videos and practice test, passed my 1001 and 1002 on the first attempt. No problems. The super efficient way to do it. Steven, congratulations on your A+ certification. And now you're locked in. You got your 1001 and 1002 done before the times ran out in October. So now you're locked in for 3 years. Congratulations on your A+ cert. Thank you for your $4.99 super chat as well. We appreciate that. Always appreciate when folks are sending those our way. It does help keep the lights on. And a nice thing to do back is to put that in the super chats and live stream. So thank you so much for that. Let's see how you did with this question. I think some of you knew some of these right away. Other folks may have been working on this a bit. So let's step through them one by one. I'm going to see if I can maybe take my big head off the screen for just a second as we do the first one here. So let's look at number one. We can see this arrow is pointing over to this long blue sticky thing. That's like they say, what's brown and sticky? A stick. In this case, this is not a stick. This is a PCI Express slot. You can tell it's PCI Express not only for the connections that are on here. You can almost see where the different links are and the connections going in, but it's also got the locking mechanism on the end, which is very indicative of the PCI Express slots and what might be. There's some smaller PCI Express as well, some 1Xs. It looks like some older PCI is on this motherboard as well. Perhaps not the newest motherboard that you might find. It's hard to find them these days with both the PCI Express and PCI on the same motherboard. We pretty much transitioned over to everything, haven't we, to the PCI Express. Second on our list, this arrow number 2, pointing down to whatever device this happens to be. Well, that device happens to be your CPU. That's what is on this motherboard. That's really one of the largest components on the motherboard itself of the CPU. It was really difficult to find a picture that did not have the cooling heatsink and fan on top of the CPU, because that's normally how we would see this. Normally when we get the CPU, not only has the CPU been installed, but the motherboard now has on top of the CPU some type of cooling system. Usually that is both a cooling system that combines a heatsink to pull the hot type of temperatures up into the fans or the fins of the heatsink, but then there's also a fan on top to blow air on that and cool it down even faster. Pretty nice to have that, but you often don't see it because everything is now on top of that CPU. So it's nice we're able to at least see what a CPU looks like in this scenario. Lastly, we've got number 3 on our list. That is a battery. That small little device down here. The battery is almost one of the larger things on the motherboard. It's bigger than some of the SATA connections. It's bigger than some of the chips and chipsets that are on here. That's a big battery, relatively speaking. These days, that battery, the only thing it's really doing is keeping the clock, so the time and date on our system. If we were to remove the battery and put it back, all you'd be doing is resetting the clock. You wouldn't be changing anything with the configuration of the motherboard or really anything else that's there. Some people, in fact, chat room says, is that a CMOS battery? Well, we used to call it or refer to it in that way. It's because back in the day, CMOS configuration information was stored in volatile memory that was kept alive and available thanks to the battery that was on the motherboard. And if the battery died, you lost your CMOS config. So that's why you'll often hear people still refer to it as the CMOS battery, even though these days that battery is not keeping any part of the CMOS configuration. So it's one of those examples to have that there. So that's what that battery does. It only keeps track of the time and date. That's all that battery's there for these days. We've got another one on the list, number 4, memory slot. Those are the memory slots. You can see these memory slots have different colors on them as well. That indicates to me that this motherboard probably is able to use multi-channel, in this case, dual channel memory. So if you have one 16 gig stick, you can put it in one slot. But if you have two 8 gig sticks and divide them into two separate slots, you actually have faster throughput to your memory because of that multi-channel capability. You'll, of course, need to check the documentation of the motherboard just to make sure that's what it is, but that's certainly what I would refer to that. It's a memory slot. It's a memory connection. It's a memory RAM. Anything works with me. I'm giving you sort of the broad terms here. This is a fill in the blank. Now, if this was an actual exam, you probably might even have a drag and drop, and you might have 10 different items. You have to drag 5 of them over. That's usually how that works. This, you for that a RAM slot. I'll take that as a correct answer as well. So that works for me. And then lastly on our list, that larger connector down here at the bottom, that's the power for your motherboard. That's a large 24-pin ATX connection coming from your power supply, and that's why on any motherboard, that's really the standard memory, standard power connection coming directly from the power supply to have that there. Very useful. To know where that is, it should be relatively obvious. I like that this one's off to the side. Hopefully, we're able to get the cables from our power supply up and plugged in without it getting in the way of too much of the airflow that's going over our motherboard. So those are the answers. The first one is a PCI Express slot. Second one is the CPU. Third one is the battery. Fourth one is the memory slot or RAM slot or memory or RAM, whatever it happens to be. And the last one is power. That's our power connection. So if you got those right, or you think you did pretty well on that, you probably are ready to go with that section of the exam. But you could be asked for almost anything on here. If you ever want to try this yourself, you can always go over to Google, just type in motherboard, and then have it do an image search. Pull up just a random image of a motherboard and see if you can pick out where's the SATA ports, where is the CPU, where is the memory, where is the power. You can kind of go through all of those different components to find out where they happen to be. It's a great way to do that. I want to thank Daniel in the chat room for the $10 super chat. Daniel says, I passed my Security Plus a few months ago, taking Network Plus in a few weeks. You're going backwards, Daniel. Or as I like to say, you're going in the right direction, because this is the path I took. I did my Security Plus first, then my Network Plus, then my A Plus. Yeah, I did it kind of backwards. But sometimes we have to do it that way. Sometimes that's the way it works. So thank you, Daniel, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate your support as well in the chat room. Thanks so much. These 5 options, these were fill in the blanks. Hopefully, this is one you can become familiar with. The real question, though, is what if you got 4 of them right and 1 of them wrong? Do you get partial credit? Well, CompTIA has told us on their website that you could possibly get partial credit. They've also said you could possibly not get partial credit. They've said, we don't know. We have the ability to provide partial credit. We do, in some cases, give partial credit, but we will never tell you when that's going to be. So even though they do provide the option, you'll never know anyway. So this is one, don't worry so much. Don't dwell on the idea that you have to know exactly how things are graded, because you will never know. People often say, I know exactly how they grade it, and here's how it is. They have no idea, because CompTIA doesn't share that information. Even if I knew, I would be telling everybody, but they don't tell me. They don't tell anyone. It's a secret that they keep to know exactly how this is graded. So don't worry so much about all or nothing. I think in a question like this, let's say that they're giving partial credit. I think that's a reasonable thing to consider given the questions that are there. And we'll have to see if that makes sense. We'll have to know. Well, if you did pretty well on that, you're done with the hardware piece, at least on the motherboard side. Now you can shift gears over to the rest of that 1101 exam. And for that, I have more questions for you. Let's now shift gears back to a multiple choice-based question. This question asks, a single drive in a 4-drive NAS has failed, and the data is no longer accessible from the network. Which of the following would best describe this array? Would we describe it as, if I can get the right buttons pushed on my side, would we describe it as a RAID 0, a RAID 1, a RAID 1 plus 0, or a RAID 5? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answers. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll see what you think the answer to this one happens to be. Deathlocks in the chat room. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Deathlocks says, thank you for providing free videos on these certifications. You're very welcome. I'm fresh out of high school, passed A plus because of your videos onto Network Plus. You are crushing it, Deathlocks. If you are working just out of high school, you're making the rest of us look bad. You're just out of high school. You've got your A plus. You're working on the Network Plus. You're going to be ready to step right into one of these technical roles the moment you get out of college, certainly. You're already working towards that direction. Congratulations on your A plus. Best of luck with your Network Plus. And thank you for your $5 super chat as well. Thanks so much. I agree. Smart guy working on it. This is sort of the place I was. When I was in high school, I wanted to know everything about computers. The computer or home computer environment at that point was relatively new. So all of us were learning about these technologies. And as it turns out, we continue to do that all the way through your career. There will always be new things coming out. You will always be learning. It will always be something new and something interesting. I think that's the fun part of really IT. That's why I love information technology. Let's look at this question and see how you did. The question asked, a single drive and a 4-drive NAS has failed, and the data is no longer available from the network. Which of the following would best describe this array? Is it RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 1 plus 0, or RAID 5? Let's show the results. What do you think? What do you think we got on this one? We never know for sure. 52% of us, that is just a majority, say it's RAID 0. 22% say RAID 1. 15% say RAID 1 plus 0. And then 12% say RAID 5. So we have this curve that goes directly down from A, B, C, and D. We start with that 52% on RAID 0. So if we were going to go with the majority, it would be RAID 0. And if you look at the chart of how RAID 0 works, you will see that RAID 0 requires 2 or more drives. In this case, we had 4. But the important thing about RAID 0 is that it gives you 0 redundancy. So because of that, if any of these drive fails, anywhere in the array, just one drive happens to fail, this happens all the time, it breaks the array and your data is no longer available. That is the exact situation we have for this question because we had a 4-drive NAS. That's a network attached storage array. You should have already known that. You already knew that. And the data is no longer accessible from the network, which means we can't access the data. Something has gone wrong. We lost the data and had that there. So that's a real problem. Which of the following would best describe this array? RAID 0 is the right answer. That's the one that everyone chose there. This is the one that if things break, when you lose a single drive, it really was not set up to be redundant. And of course, RAID 0 is 0 redundancy. RAID 1 is mirroring, which means if we lost one drive, we'd still have access to the data. In fact, most of the time, your users have no idea that you even lost a drive. RAID 1 plus 0 is a great way to have a striped configuration, which is what RAID 0 is, with mirroring so that you have some redundancy. So losing a single drive there still gets you up and running. And then lastly, RAID 5 is parity to provide the redundancy. That also provides availability. You're still up and running. You still have your data if you lose a single drive. So it would not be RAID 5. It would be RAID 0. Yeah, the real question is, why were they running RAID 0? What's the deal with that? Well, there could be a number of reasons for that. First, of course, if you have 0 redundancy, then you have 0 amount of space being used for redundancy, which means you can use all of the space available on the drive. So you have much more space available for storage if you don't have redundancy. And maybe they back this up every hour. Maybe they back it up every day. Or maybe the information on this array doesn't change very often. And if we lose a drive, we replace it, we restore from backup, and we're back up and running. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to use RAID 0. Not a lot of great reasons, but there are some probably corner cases. Most of the time, you'll probably see people running RAID 1 or RAID 5. Sometimes you might run into RAID 1 plus 0. That's a relatively unusual one, but it does happen. I have a network attached storage here in my studio and I'm running RAID 5 or a type of RAID 5 to be able to get that one running. So I have redundancy. If I lose a drive, everything is still up and running. And that's the way it really should be. I want to thank PD Resch in the chat room with a $4.99 super chat. Says, thanks for helping me land a dream job. Just started doing IT support for a NASCAR team. That's NASCAR, for those of you not in the U.S., is race car driving. That is the race car driving. Are you, good question, are you in Florida or somewhere else? I'd love to know this. PD Resch, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. We sure appreciate it. Yeah, it's the left-hand turn racing. It's the good kind of racing on a Sunday afternoon with the NASCAR. That is a remarkable position to be in too. That's one of the things I've often said is you have such an opportunity to take jobs in so many different places because IT is everywhere. I've been to nuclear power plants. I've been to some of the biggest financial data centers in the world. I've been on the floor of a brewery. You just never know where you're going to find the IT. But those are very different types of IT to really be working through. And that's certainly one that you would find. In this case, though, redundancy is what we were hoping for. And redundancy is not what we had, which means we must have been running RAID 0, RAID 0, 0 redundancy. PD Resch is in North Carolina and just won a race this past weekend. Congratulations. That's pretty exciting, right? That's when you can find a job like that that kind of combines a lot of different passions. It's really such a great fit. IT enables you to do almost anything in any industry. It's just the time to add the technology to whatever you're trying to do, and you can find something that really, really hits the buttons for you, really something that enables your passions. What other type of field could you do that? I just love it, the way it works. Let's shift gears now and do another question. Now that we think that RAID 0 is what we were looking at, 54% of you got that one right. Let's see how we do with this one. This question asks, which of the following can be used to connect an iPad to a laptop? Is it Thunderbolt, RS-232, micro USB, Lightning, or mini USB? The answer you may have been looking for is not on this list, is it? So make sure you read those very carefully. Which of the following can be used to connect an iPad to a laptop? Is it Thunderbolt, RS-232, micro USB, Lightning, or mini USB? Do you think you know the answer? Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. That's the link that is on your screen, and lock in your answer. See where that goes. Toztech in the chat room has one of those great stories who says, I still support an embedded NT machine, Windows NT 4.0, as part of a giant log cutting machine used for log cabin manufacturing. This is one of those, by the way, that people don't think about, these embedded machines that have an operating system. The device, hopefully, Taz, you can confirm, it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to the internet. It's not connected to the local network. So even if there is a vulnerability, even if there is some type of sneaky way the attackers could get into the operating system, they have no way to do it because you have effectively air-gapped that system, which means it's not connected to anything. And if it's not connected to anything and it's working, you could use that operating system into infinity. You can just keep using it, because the operating system isn't going to change. Your hardware, in this case, a giant log cutting machine used for log cabin manufacturing, isn't going to change. The wood is not going to change. So why not continue to run it? But this also means, Toztech, are you the one in the company that has to know Windows NT 4.0? I'm curious about that. Interestingly enough, as someone who I am an MCSE for Windows NT 4.0. If you want to go back in the day, I don't think that's a valid cert anymore, but I've got the paper. I've got the paper that says I am an MCSE from Microsoft for Windows NT 4.0. It took 6 exams to earn that MCSE, so it's not often I get to tout that these days. It's interesting, though, that even when that's the case, I still can use that information I learned during that MCSE and apply it towards the latest Windows operating systems. It's remarkable how much changes, but it's also remarkable how much stays the same. And that's one of those that is really a challenge and see how it works. Let's see how you did with this question. It asked, which of the following can be used to connect an iPad to a laptop? Is it Thunderbolt, RS-232, micro USB, Lightning, or a mini USB? Let's see how you answered this one. 73% of you, significantly larger number, said Lightning is the connection type. 19% said Thunderbolt. Those two sound really familiar. They sound like they could be the same thing, but thunder is not lightning. That's something you always have to keep in mind. Micro USB was 6% of the answers, and then 1% for RS-232 and 1% for mini USB. So this is what you would find on most iPads. I shouldn't say most, but many iPads, at least from this list. If you had to choose one of those connection types, the one you would want to choose is the Lightning connector. That is the one that is most of the iPads that are available out there have a Lightning connector on it. Not all iPads have a Lightning connector. I have an iPad here in the studio. That's what I am using to be able to see the current slide and what the next slide is going to be. And my slides for this iPad are an iPad Pro, one of the newest models. It has USB-C connectivity. So a lot of people are saying, will Apple change their Lightning? Well, they already are. They're already changing it. So they're definitely in the clear. Now, we didn't have USB-C when Lightning came out. Lightning at the time was fantastic because we didn't have to fight with it or put it in a particular way like you did with USB. Even the USB engineers tell us, yeah, we should have done that better from the very beginning. It should have just been USB-C from the very beginning of this, but well, live and learn. This does have a few advantages over the micro USB, but generally speaking, if you're plugging into an Apple device, it almost always is going to be Lightning unless it's one of the newer devices. And of course, this is going to change as time goes on. If you're watching this video 3 years from now and suddenly everything has been converted to a different format, you don't have to tell me about it. I can't go back in time and change the video. So that's a good example of something you would need to know. So that is the answer. Lightning is the one you would want to choose. 73% of you chose Lightning. Now, Thunderbolt got a big percentage. 19% of you chose Thunderbolt. And I think that's because it just sounds like the same type of rainy day that the Lightning would be in. But as someone in the chat room mentioned, Toztec, in fact, said Lightning comes before Thunder. So keep that in mind if you're plugging in your devices. Thunderbolt also used here in the studio. You can't see that very well, but everything that's here, especially from, this is running on a studio, you can kind of see behind all of this is my Apple Studio. My Mac Studio is back here. It is connecting to my storage systems, which have SSDs in them, which are right here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's what's spinning around there. It's recording all of this to an SSD. And then I pull it out of there and put it into an SSD rack here, and that is connected via Thunderbolt to my Mac that's back here. I'm going to put all of that in this 19-inch rack eventually. I'm waiting on more cables to get here. So, but that is exactly what I'm connecting all of my peripherals to is Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt not commonly used to connect something like a iOS or iPad OS device. So that is what that would plug into. Thunderbolt's almost always connecting peripheral devices because Thunderbolt is just so fast. We can get so much throughput through Thunderbolt. Micro USB and mini USB are obviously USB connections, very small connections you would commonly see mostly in Android-type devices. And then we've got RS-232. 1% of you chose that. RS-232 is a signal type commonly sent across serial connections, often with serial-type connectivity for a DB9 or DB25, for example. It doesn't have to be in those types of physical configurations, but that's what that would be. So that is the answer. Lightning is the one we were looking for. Answer D, 73% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit and you would like to get an email from me that certifies that you were here to watch a 1-hour webinar category CEU, then you'll want to follow these instructions. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. You want to click the Contact Us link. And in that Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address, and you also want to put in the subject line that this is the August 2022 A+ study group. and then the body of the message on a line by itself with nothing else on the line but just this word, put the word Thunderbolt. That is the word we would like on a line all by itself. That's the super secret code word of the month is Thunderbolt. If you'd like to put anything else in that message, you're more than welcome to put those there. I can't reply back to all of these because I get hundreds of these in a month, but I love reading through them. So it's really more selfish is what I'm asking. Put a little note there if you would like. I do read through every single one of these, just so you know. Thunderbolt is our super secret code word of the month. That will earn you a 1-hour webinar category continuing education unit credit, which of course is only useful to you if you've already earned your A+ Network Plus, Security Plus, or other certifications. Or sometimes I have an employer who says, yes, you can watch the live stream, but you have to give me the CEU at the end, so they know you watched it. It's one of those to be able to work through it. That's the answer. Is that for the continuing education unit credit. Usually it takes me about a week to turn these around, but they come in. Usually I'm doing these on the weekends now. So if you want to wait until the weekend, if you need it before, then let me know. I can always send it back a little bit faster, just so I know exactly what it is. So very quickly, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Mesa website, click the Contact Us link, put your name, your email address in the subject line. I just need to know where this came from. So put in August 2022 A+ study group or something like that, and you'll be able to send that along to me, and I will be glad to send that back to you for credit. Well, as you can already tell here, there is a lot you have to know on this exam to be able to really understand all of these different topics. This is an extensive set of things that you might need to know. We've already gone through cloud. We've already looked at hardware today. We haven't done any troubleshooting yet. We've connected some mobile devices. All of this is on your exam and much more. The A+ exam, both the 220 1101 and 1102, are big exams. For me, I just finished both of these a couple of months ago, and it ended up being 137 videos for both of these certification exams. That is over 19 hours of information. And I realize not everybody has time to watch 137 videos. Not everybody has time to watch all 19 hours of these. So I have created a set of course notes. These course notes provide you with a way to collapse everything important from my certification videos all into one single document. It is a big document. I've got an electronic version of it right here. So let me show you what this looks like. Here it is. That is not the picture of it. This is a better picture of it. There we go. So this is the PDF version. You can get the digital version to work through if that's something you would like to use. This digital version has how many pages? 57, probably 58 pages. And everything that's in my videos is in this document. So all of the charts, all of the graphics, all of the text, everything that you would need to know for your exam is in here. Extensive details. And I have both the digital version that you just saw, and I can print out a version and send you the physical version as well. You can purchase that one. It costs a little bit more because we have to print it and ship it to you. But it's exactly the same. So, and of course, if you get the physical version, I give you the digital version for free. So while you're waiting on this to be delivered, you'll get the digital version that you can step through. Now, if you're in the middle of trying to figure out, you've been working on the 1001 and 1002, and you realize I'm going to have to shift over to the new version, and you would like a newer version of this, there is an upgrade available. So you can get a significant discount if you want to make that move. Upgrade should be visible inside of your member login. If it isn't, open up a ticket, and I'll make sure you have a coupon that you can upgrade so that you don't have to repurchase the whole thing again. You've already purchased one, so you're an existing customer. I'll give you a little bit of break on upgrading the other one. I do plan on accepting cryptocurrency as payment sometime soon. There's a number of upgrades I have to make to be able to make that happen, and making any type of change on a website is always a challenge. But I think I'm about at the point where I'm able to do that, but we're still a couple weeks out from being able to provide that. But thank you for asking. I want to thank Braden in the chat room with the $9.99 super chat. Braden says, thank you. Officially A+ certified as of last night. I only use your material, what I'm learning, and what I'm learning in my internship. Oh, this is great. You got an internship to use along with it as well. Apply some of those real world things. Braden says, thank you. Network Plus is next. Again, that's a great one on the Network Plus side. I think the Network Plus is a great next step. If it's something that fits also into your career plans, it's a great certification to have. Braden, congratulations on A+. Best of luck with your Network Plus, and thank you so much for the super chat and for your support. Hopefully we'll be able to provide you with a little more detail on your Network Plus side and get you through that exam as well. Let's do another question. I've got more here to work through. Let me make sure I have it available on my screen. This question asks, if I can click it on my side, a network administrator needs to monitor the router at a remote site. Which of the following should be enabled in the firewall? Should you enable TCP 110, UDP 53, TCP 389, UDP 161, or TCP 25? Oh, it's always port numbers, isn't it? It's always port numbers. The question again, a network administrator needs to monitor the router at a remote site. Which of the following should be enabled in the firewall? Is it TCP 110, UDP 53, TCP 389, UDP 161, or TCP 25? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Do I have it on the screen? Of course I don't. There it is. There's your link, professormesser.com/QA. That is where you need to go. The chat room, Chris is asking about what the difference is between the 1101, 1102 and the 1000, 1002. All you have to do is, well, you can't rewind. You'll just have to go back and watch the replay in the first 10 minutes where we go through all of those. And we can, of course, give you more details if that's what you'd like in the second half or the after show of this. And more, if you have a specific question, asking what the difference is between them. What is the difference between the Earth and Mars? Well, there's quite a few differences. So without having a little bit more detail, it's difficult to give you more information there. See if you know. I've got a good link for memorizing port numbers, by the way, on my website at Take 10, professormesser.com/Take 10. There's a performance-based question. It's the first one for the, I think it's for the 1001. Did I move it over to the 1101 yet? If I didn't, I need to do that, where it's a little game where you can drag and drop all of those while you're working on this. Maybe I'll work on these too. So we flip through them. I need to pull up and see what the differences are between all of these. See if I can find it on mine. I think I can. I think I've got plenty. Yeah, I've got some we can go through in the after show. So we will go through this in the after show. Just wanted to look at that really quick and see if I was able to do that. Absolutely can. See if you can lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock it in. See what you happen to have there. Whenever I work through some of these questions, it's really a challenge trying to figure out what the best answer is for port numbers. You not only need to know the port number and what the protocol is, but I think most of the questions on the exam are questions like this, where they ask you, what does that protocol do? And in this case, we sort of ask it separately. We ask, here's what you want to do. How would you make that happen? So it's more than just a check on how much you can memorize. This is really applying what you know about this topic into something and how it works. So this is a good one to step through. And maybe this is a good one for taking out the ones you think it is because you happen to know what those are. That might help you. A little bit of calculatus, elementatus, never hurt anyone. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a network administrator needs to monitor the router at a remote site. Which of the following should be enabled in the firewall? Is that TCP 110, UDP 53, TCP 389, UDP 161, or TCP 25? What would it be? Has to be one of them. Let's see what you answered. We show the results. You can see that we don't know. We are all over the place. 30% of us say it's TCP 389. 25% of us say it's UDP 161. 16% say TCP 110. 16%, 17% say it's TCP 25. And then 12% say it's UDP 53. All double digits on this one. That's a big one to figure out. If we need to query or monitor a device that is an infrastructure device, It's a device that has, it's a router, it's a switch, it's a firewall, it's some other type of device. It's a server, might be a Windows server, it might be a Linux server. And we, as a network administrator, need to monitor that device. We can't just all stand next to it the whole time and look at the screen to see if it's working. We need some automated functions that go out to these devices and query the devices for us. And if it has a problem with the information it's receiving, it can then notify us that a potential problem has occurred. One of the best ways to do that is by using a protocol specifically designed to do this called the Simple Network Management Protocol. It's in the name. SNMP is the protocol, which is what we almost always call it. It will query devices using the port numbers UDP 161, and it will receive alerts, or in the SNMP world, they're called traps. I don't know. That's what they call them. It's the only place in the world we call that a trap instead of an alert. But that's what it is. Traps use UDP port 162 to be able to communicate. So SNMP, an incredibly useful protocol. Here's our management station. You see it's probably running Windows NT along with the log cutting systems that we have, because it has that big CRT on the top of it. And that's really just me being ironic. It makes a query into the router that asks via SNMP, hey, how many bytes have gone through one particular interface on that router? And the router sends back a message and says 210,506 bytes have gone into that interface. And then it sends that message to the management station via SNMP. That's the conversation that just took place. Now, this device will probably wait a minute or 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever interval it is. And then it will send another query. All right, how many bytes now? And the message will come back with probably an increased number. And now you can track those over time. In the video that I have, which is Common Network Ports, I think in that video I have a picture of an SNMP diagram. Certainly in the 1001 course I do. I'm not sure we do in the 1002. A lot of things were removed from the 1001 when they made the 1101. I don't want to say that too loud for the people still studying the 1001. But some of the things were removed between those two. SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol, is exactly what you would use to make that happen. The SNMP, it uses UDP port 161, answer D. In this case, the plurality of you did not have the correct answer. 30% of you said TCP 389, but 26% of you said UDP 161, which is really the right answer. Answer D is what we should have chosen. We have a lot of different protocols here. TCP 110 if you're doing email, UDP 53 for DNS, TCP 389 for LDAP, and TCP 25. This is, whenever you start getting into mail, there's so many different port numbers for mail doing things in a different way. So make sure you go through all of those and understand the differences between all of these different email protocols for POP3 and IMAP and the others that we might want to use. Pretty useful. UDP 161 is what we would use for this. Pretty good. Now, question in the chat room, hey, isn't 161 insecure or something? Port numbers are just port numbers. There's nothing secure or insecure about a port number. It's just an address. It's just a way to get data from one device to another. Port numbers do not provide any type of redundancy. They don't provide any type of security. Port number is quite simply a number. That's all it is. And it's a number that we've just all decided this is what this application is going to use. But if you wanted to use a different port number, in many cases, you can change the port number and use something different. Well, isn't TCP more secure than UDP? Nope, they're just different ways of talking. So is English more secure than Spanish? Nope, there's just different ways of talking. That's the only difference between TCP and UDP. They are neither better or worse than the other. They are just different ways to get data across the network. And how we would work through them. A great way to look at data and how it works with SNMP. SNMP is such a common protocol. You will see it being used everywhere because it's what we use in the data center. It's what we use to monitor all of these devices. A very, very common way to make that happen. If you want to know what are the other port numbers, what are all of the port numbers you should memorize, you should go look at your exam objectives. I'm going to pull up a set of the exam objectives. How could I not already have this up and running on my screen already? Let's have a look at, we'll do the 1101 Objectives. I have the version 4, which I think is the latest version of these. And let's have a look on the exam objectives. I'm going to scroll up to section 2 under the networking section and give you a feel for this, because here are section 2.0 and 2.1, compare and contrast transmission control protocol, TCP, and user datagram protocol, UDP, ports, protocols, and their purposes. And here's the list. Now, I say this, I don't really mean it flippantly, but it sounds like this. This is all you need to know for ports. These are the only ports you need to memorize. There's quite a few here. And as you can see in my video, we go through quite a few ports in my video. And I give you a description. I have a whole video that describes the differences between TCP and UDP. I have the whole moving van that shows you how to get data across the network as if it was a moving van. You've got lots of things you can look at there. But all of those numbers that are there, that's everything you need to know. That's where they are. That's what you need to work on. So those different port numbers. And the reason I say that's the only ones you need to know is there are literally thousands and thousands of port numbers that are out there and associated with applications. Fortunately, CompTIA tells you these are the only ones you need to know. So have that. This is, and there is no, this, it's odd that this keeps coming up, is that these numbers are just numbers. They're not numbers that are privileged. They're not numbers that are reserved. They're not numbers that are permanent. They're not numbers that make one protocol more or less secure than others. They're simply numbers. And I know that we tend to use them and categorize them in certain ways, but at the end of the day, I hate to use that term, but when you finally go through all of this, those numbers are the ones that are associated with the app, and they're just a number. When you finally get down to this document I'm looking at is the CompTIA exam objectives. Let's scroll all the way to the top of this. This is the CompTIA A+ certification exam core 1 objectives for exam number core 1 2201101 and a bunch of colorful icons. That's what this document is. This is the document you would get if you went to professormesser.com/objectives or simply type into the Google machine or whatever you'd like to use, CompTIA exam objectives. You'll find it. It's in there. Is it because an encrypted version of SNMP uses 10.161? Does it? It doesn't really. 161 is really what everyone uses. So ports are not secure or insecure. The data that communicates to a port is secure or insecure. So it doesn't matter what the port number is. We could all be using port number 1 for SNMP, or we could be using port number 11,111. That's our SNMP port number. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you send to another device over that particular port number. That's the difference. So don't ever get caught thinking that maybe there would be something there we need to know. These port numbers is certainly the thing we would need to work on. So the answer we wanted was indeed SNMP. That's the one we were shooting for. And indeed, 27 of you chose the SNMP port number UDP 161. That is the right answer. Congratulations. Brandon in the chat room with the $19.99 super chat coming off the top rope. Brandon, who says, in your live stream last month, I told you I passed the 1001 thanks to your videos. You said your timing was perfect. Happy to update that I passed the 1002. Another person sneaking in under the wire with that 3-year A+ certification. Brandon says, now working on the Security Plus with your videos and notes. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Brandon. More than happy to help you. And thanks so much for your support. The $19.99 super chat on here as well. I think that gives us enough of a reason to do another question. Even though we're at the top of the hour, we're in overtime. Let's do one more question, should we? To fit one more into this. Let's rebound from this port number question. We can't end on this one, can we? So let's go do this. Let's ask this question, which says, a user, not a great set of words here. A user is using an ADF to complete a project. Well, I wrote these, so I can talk badly about it. Which of the following would be most associated with this project? Is it backup storage, USB drive booting, cloud-based file sharing, packet captures, or page scanning? A user is using an ADF to complete a project. Which of the following would be most associated with this project? Is it backup storage, USB drive booting, cloud-based file sharing, packet captures, or page scanning? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to follow the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what that answer is. It's true, Michael in the chat room is correct that there is about a 40% difference, 30 to 40% between the 1000 series exams and the 1100 series exams. So that is exactly the situation you might run into. So that's why I always tell folks that this is a pretty important one to work through. That's why I also say make sure your study materials are that they match the version of the exam you're going to take. I would hate for you to study from 1001 study materials and then walk into the exam to take the 1101, and that's when everything falls apart for you, because now 30 to 40% of this exam is going to be brand new materials you've never seen before. It could be that the best thing you'd be able to do is a 60% on the exam, because you know everything else except the 40% that you don't know, that you were never, ever read through or got any information from because you had older material. So that's the real key here is, of course, make sure your study materials match. It's so important. I mention this all the time, and in fact, I was even telling someone else who was an instructor, I said, well, you know, it's 40% difference on the 1102. They said, well, it's really about the same. Because if you look at the structure, it's about the same. I said, well, yes, the structure is identical. If we went by structure, the exams are 100% the same. But the problem is it's the details of the exam that are different. They threw out a bunch of bullets. They added a bunch of bullets. So that's the thing. That's there's a huge difference. So make sure your study materials match. It's so important, so critical that they match. It makes a big difference in your final score. What's the passing percentage? There isn't one, because each question is worth a different number of points. So it's not a percentage. Can't even calculate it. Can't even figure it out. Speaking of calculating, let's see how you did with this one. A user is using an ADF to complete a project. Which of the following would be most associated with this project? Is it backup storage, USB drive booting, cloud-based file sharing, packet captures, or page scanning? Let's see how you answered this one. We're a little torn on this one. We've got 42% that say page scanning. We got 40% that say cloud-based file sharing. And then 8% said packet captures, 7% said backup storage, and 2% said USB drive booting. So that is one. We have to fit through this. Now, the question that people mentioned in the chat room that you'll notice was deleted relatively quickly is, what's an ADF? What are you talking about? What is this crazy abbreviation? Well, if you are studying from the 1001, this is a really good example. ADF doesn't show up on your 1001 exam objectives, but ADF is absolutely in your 1101 exam objectives. And an ADF is what you would find if you were trying to get information put into either you were trying to copy a bunch of information or you're trying to scan a bunch of information. So normally if you do a scanner or make a copier, sort of like the one that's here, this is a multifunction device, you would take a single page and you put that single page on the top and you say copy it, or you say scan it, depending on what you need to have done. That's great, but you have to do a page at a time. What if you had 100 pages? You have to stand in front of the device and manually change the page out over and over and over again. Or if you had to copy 100 pages, you'd have to manually do it one page at a time. Well, of course, we're not going to do that one page at a time. We're going to have some type of automated process like an automated document feeder. An ADF is what that is. So ADFs are exactly what you would need to do. So you can put all 100 pages into the ADF, you hit go, and then you walk away. That's what you would use to be able to sort of put everything in one place, and then it can go through and pull in every other page for this, an ADF, to be able to complete this project. So if you're using an ADF, then you're probably copying something. So you can put all 100 pages there, say go, and then you can walk away and it'll copy all 100 pages. Or if you're scanning something, you put them into the ADF and it will scan one after the other after the other. This is very commonly seen on these multifunction devices, copiers, these large devices that are able to do a lot of different things. You'll usually find an ADF on the top of them. So if you have a project for an ADF, it's not going to be backup storage. ADFs aren't used for backup storage. USB drive booting, ADFs are not used to boot a USB drive. Packet captures, not used for packet captures, thankfully. Imagine an ADF for a packet capture. You've got also cloud-based file sharing. 40% of you said cloud-based file sharing. I'm trying to figure out how an ADF got somehow into cloud-based file sharing. Somebody needs to finish that up for me. Maybe I'm missing. Oh, I'm absolutely missing a connection there. Somebody needs to tell me how they get from one place to the other. Maybe I just completely blanked on something that would have given me cloud-based file sharing with an ADF. And an Azure data file, that's not even part of what this is. And Azure data file, is that even a third part, a three-word acronym, a three-letter acronym? I don't think it is. This would be cloud. I guess you could reach and say we're scanning, but we're scanning to a location, and it's storing the file in a location that just so happens to be shared in the cloud. We had to make a whole pretzel there, didn't we, to finally get there? So that's not the case. In this case, the one that would be most associated with this project, or least amount of bending and curling to try to make the answer, would indeed be page scanning. That's what an ADF is very commonly used for, is the page scanning process. And 44% of you did choose that one. Eventually, we got that one up above the cloud-based file sharing because all of you are watching the video. So ADF is that automatic document feeder, and you've already learned something new about the exam topics that are in the 1101. This is a really good example of multifunction devices was in the 1001. Printing and scanning was in the 1001, but ADF was not. ADF is a new term, and you need to know the new terms. So when you walk into the exam and get a question like this, you will be able to answer that question. So important that your exam study materials match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. So very important. Make sure you do that. Everything we have looked at today, in fact, are in the objectives. Make sure you get your hands on these objectives. So important. And if you go to professormesser.com/objectives, you will absolutely find it and seeing where it really makes sense. If you are trying to find out, in fact, I get this question all the time where people say, what do I really need to know for something like this? What do I have to know before I walk into the exam? And in this particular case, everything in the objectives is what you need to know. It is a very comprehensive list. You've already seen part of it on my screen because we didn't even go through all of it. Let me bring it up into sort of a two-page mode. And you can see there's bullet upon section upon domain, just tons of information to go through. So if you're somebody who is trying to work through what you need to have and available, these objectives will show you everything. So make sure you get your hands on those. They're free. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, the link that's on your screen. Follow the link over to the CompTIA website, or go to the CompTIA or your favorite search engine and type in CompTIA exam objectives, and you'll find everything that happens to be there. Can you believe we've gone through an hour already? But we do another one of these every month. In fact, we have a 1102 study group on Thursday, 2 days from today. Make sure you come back for that one. But look at the schedule for next month. Next month is a little bit crazy for me. Normally, we do one or two of these a week. But you see, next month on September the 6th is the next A+ 1101 study group with an 1102 study group on September the 12th. Kind of an odd set of days. And then we squeeze in Network Plus and Security Plus on the 28th and 29th. There's obviously chaos going on every other part of this month for me, apparently. They're just scattered everywhere. sometimes hard to fit these in on a day that works for everybody. So hopefully you'll be able to see that. If you don't know when this is going to be, you're thrown by the weird days I'm putting on the calendar, join the club. But you can always find out when the next event is going to be by going to professormesser.com/calendar. It really is the best place to go to find all of these. And if I happen to change it, I change it there first. So you'll always know when the next live event is going to be at professormesser.com/calendar. One of the best ways to do it. Can you believe we did an hour already? There we are, but we're not done just because the main part of the study group is over. I say main part, but it turns out our after show often is more of the main part than the first hour. Stick around for the after show. Don't forget about the vouchers, a discount already built in at professormesser.com/vouchers. We also have course notes and practice exams, not quite yet, but I've been working on them and they're so good. I don't want to give too much away, but we are working very hard on getting our 1101 and 1102 practice exams out. And just the new set is just so good. One of the things that I always do in my practice exams is they are specific to the exam objectives. Anything that is not in the exam objectives is not in my practice exams. And so I make them very specific for you. It takes a little bit more time. Oh, but I think it's worth it. You're going to like it when they get out here. But the course notes are available currently. You can always go out to the website and get the 1101 and 1102 course notes. They are real and available immediately. Also, don't forget about the daily pop quiz question on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram. Also has a pretty picture of the daily pop quiz question. And if you like this video, would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. My friends at YouTube are always watching these statistics. They always want to know what you think of my videos. This is a great way to tell them, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Just give it a thumbs up or a like. And if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, we are here as well. There's always something new that we're working on. Stick around for this. We've got a lot more coming in the after show. Stick around for that. I'll get to some of these questions you've already been asking. You can also ask more questions. We'll talk about it in the after show. Thank you for being here in this first hour. We'll see you next time on the A+ study group. Let's see if I can get us back up and running with a different set of lower thirds so that some of you can ask some of these questions. Do I have the right lower third? I believe I do. There it is. Now I'm watching the chat go by. This is the chat that's on YouTube. So if you're already watching on YouTube, that's the chat. You don't have to follow this particular link. If you're on my website, then you're at professormesser.com/live. There's also a chat there, which is also the same YouTube chat. I've just embedded the YouTube chat into that page. So something that you can easily chat into and find the different ones and have those there. Questions that have come in so far. We'll start with a number of these and we'll kind of step through them, but you're welcome to, of course, ask the question in the chat. Professor, what shall a person in 2022 go for, Network Plus or CCNA? Those are two completely different exams. So those are not, you can't even compare them. They address two different requirements. They are different categories of exams. They're different difficulties of exams. Like always, the exam you should be taking, the certification you should be working for, is the one that best matches your goals and objectives and that also matches what employers in your area are looking for, assuming that's the reason that you're taking these certification exams. If the employers in your area are looking for Network Plus, I think you should take the Network Plus. If employers in your area are asking for the CCNA, I think you should take the CCNA. That's it. It's not like I have a magic wand and can say, everyone should take the CCNA. Bling. No, it doesn't work like that. Everyone should take the Network Plus. No, it doesn't matter. Some people really need that Network Plus to get that job. Some people need a CCNA to get that job. And this is probably why I never made it as a fairy godmother. You've already seen it. It didn't work out. But that's why there's also no straight answer from me. And you're wondering, just tell me which one I need to take. I can't. Nobody can, really, but you. This is all on you. So this is a question that nobody else can answer for you. Nobody else understands your interests. Nobody else understands your goals. Nobody else understands where you want to go with your career better than you. So we could probably have a conversation in 15 minutes. I could probably get a feel of what some of that might be, and I can give you my opinion of that. But it would really take quite a bit of talking to really get into that point. So I don't have an answer for you, and I'm never going to have an answer for you. It doesn't work that way. CCNA is it's a higher level cert than the CCNA. CCNA is not an entry-level certification. Do not go into a CCNA thinking you're going to walk in through that one because you won't. It's a tough exam. It's very, very, very different than the Network Plus. But it also addresses a completely different requirement. So if you're studying for the CCNA to get a job that requires the CCNA, then you're probably already at the point where you've got your Network Plus. Network Plus is probably a good lead-in to a CCNA, if you want to look at it that way. I think that's the one that might help you. At the very least, go look through the exam objectives for both. Go look at the size of the books for both. I think the Network Plus book is this thick. The CCNA book is actually 2 books that are this thick. Very different exams. People will tell you all the time, you don't need Network Plus. You just need CCNA. You can skip Network Plus. Network Plus is stupid. And they really do believe that. That is probably one of the most obvious short-sighted comments that anyone would be able to tell you, because they haven't even asked you, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your career? What things interest you the most? Where and how long do you see you moving into a role like this? Do you want to manage switches and routers? Do you want to configure networks? Do you want to troubleshoot at the packet level? There's all these questions about this that until you go down that road and really evaluate both of them, you can't answer that question. So that's my opinion, is to turn the mirror back on you and see if you can look through what you think is the best for you at that time. And I will tell you, I'm not telling you that either one of those is the right answer. I'm telling you the Network Plus might absolutely be the right answer for you, but CCNA might also be an answer for you. You need to pick the one that makes the most sense. I don't think that anyone should be forced or required to go down any particular path. That's kind of one of the benefits of IT, in my opinion, is that it's always going to be up to you and the path you want to take. That's valuable as well. Keo in the chat room, is your CompTIA A+ free course still relevant for the test today? Well, yeah, really since April, whether you're taking the 1001 or 1002, I have a course for the 1001 and 1002. If you're taking the 1101 and 1102, I also have a course for the 1101 and the 1102. So yeah, depending on the test you're planning to take, I have a course that is absolutely 100% relevant for the exam you want to take, that I go through every exam objective and I put them in the videos. So that's what we're trying to do, is get you the best possible set of videos for the exam that you would like to take. It's a valid question, but go out to ProfessorMesser.com. Everything is there. Go out to our YouTube channel. Everything is there. I think a lot of people don't realize that literally every video is there. There are no videos behind a paywall. There's no videos I'm holding back. There's nothing. You don't get like a part of the video on YouTube and then you have to pay for the big videos. No, they're all there on YouTube. There's no registration. There's no membership fee. There's no amount of money you have to spend. You just go to YouTube and you watch them. Done. This is the simplest transaction you would ever need. Why do you need a receipt for a donut? This is just a simple transaction. It's the same thing. So our videos are just there. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to get a membership. You don't have to take a receipt. You just watch the videos. That's the way it should be, in my mind. That's what we're always going to do. It just makes sense. I say always. If I have anything to say about it, that's exactly the way things are always going to be. So yes, that's the way it works. It's a little bit different than places you may have seen before, and that's by design. So that's why they are there and available. So go out to YouTube, have a look at those. And of course, we got these free events like this one as well, where you can even ask more questions and just kind of wrap some ideas and thoughts around the topics. And we can always, of course, talk about those things. In the chat room, Prime asks, hey, Professor, do you have practice exams for the 1101 and 1102? Thank you for asking. Nobody's asked that today. Everybody's asked that today. Everybody asks that every day. I always know when you're interested in something because you constantly say, we need this book. We need it immediately. And I hear you loud and clear. In fact, earlier today, I was working on this book I was working on the 1101 practice exams today. And we'll work on them every day. And so we're in the process of finishing up. We're editing, we're adding new questions, we're taking away the old stuff. We're getting everything that we need in one place, getting it up to date and accurate to the latest exam, and then we'll release it. So I would say, I'll give you a very broad answer because there's no way I can tell you a specific date, but I would expect to have at least the 1101 practice exams available for you in the coming weeks. There you go. Can you pre-order copies? Nope, because it doesn't exist yet. There is no pre-order in my world. It's either a book that exists or a book that doesn't exist. So there's no need to pre-order. When the book is available, you will have it available for yourself to do whatever you would like. So I just don't have it available for you yet. It has to be written. I have to write it. So that's what I'm working on. My practice exam books, someone asked this earlier about practice exams. Like, what are my practice exams? What is this like? My practice exams are published as a PDF. They are a book. That's done for a very specific reason. Let me show you what my 1001 practice exams look like, and that can give you some perspective anyway on what this might seem to be. Let's view this. So these are my practice exams for the 1001. So if you're studying for the 1001, this would apply for you. The practice exams book is a PDF. So I'm in my PDF reader. I'm able to go through the PDFs, and I have questions in here that are performance-based questions. I have multiple choice-based questions. There are answers in here. Show you the details of the answers. Got QR codes and links to videos. Everything is in these practice exams, but they are published as a PDF. The reason they are published as a PDF and not some kind of online automated record-keeping thing is that if they were an online automated record-keeping thing, there would be a percentage of people who would not be able to use them. Not everybody has real-time access to the internet. As many of us do have it, there's still a percentage of people who don't have that level of access and are happen to be the ones I want to be sure have access to this material. A PDF is also a very universal. I realize it's a proprietary format, but it's so well used and so available that it is a format that almost anybody has access to. You can read a PDF in a browser these days. You can read your PDF with a downloadable third-party PDF reader, all of these different types of things. So it's very accessible, and it can be used offline. You don't have to be connected to the internet to be able to use my practice exams. So all of those things are the reasons it's published as a PDF. Could I publish it as something online? I could, but that just adds a whole level of support and requirements. And I could make it a web-based app, web-based front end, and you could go through the web. Well, then there would be a bunch of people that says, I don't have access to the web all the time. Can't I just have something offline? No, it's an online thing. So there you get into those problems. But if it's a PDF, everyone can use it. So that's my perspective of this. And it isn't the purpose of my practice exams book isn't to somehow provide you with an emulated perspective of what the exam experience is. It's instead trying to give you the best possible representation of what the questions are. So that's why delivering it as a PDF gives you all of the data, all of the good information you're going to need when you walk into the room. It's also one that is able to be used by as many people as possible. So that's the balancing act I go through. And that's why it is a book and not something that is online or something that will only work in certain browsers or something that would only work with certain mobile devices. That sounds ridiculous to me. So it's not ridiculous. It goes against what I want this book to be, which is accessible. So that's sort of the idea behind this. I know you're working on books, Chris says. Will there be pop quizzes released at or around the same time as the books for 1101 and 1102 on your site? Well, if you are a member and you get my daily pop quiz questions, they are already been transitioned to 1101 and 1102 pop quiz questions. So last week, I think we started those maybe the week before. So you have a week or two of the 1101 and 1102 questions already, my daily pop quiz questions. So those just sort of happen organically. Every day there is a new question. They are all written originally. They are all provided to you every day. And every day we alternate between an 1101 and an 1102 question. So those are the two differences. When will this book be delivered? I don't know. When it's done. That's all I can tell you. There is no specific date. I don't know when it will be done because I have not done it yet. Because that's the challenge. I don't have a publisher that's leaning over me saying, this has to be completed by Saturday. It's finished whenever I finish writing it. This gives me a couple of advantages. First, I don't have to work towards an arbitrary date that someone else has set for me, which makes no sense when you're writing a book. And it also is one where I can take the proper amount of time that if I'm looking at a question and I feel like that question really needs to be updated or I need to change part of it to really fit the new exam better, but I could get away with using that question, but it's not as good as it could be. I'm never going to be in a situation where I can say, we'll just let it go. It's good enough. I hate that term, good enough. I hate it. I despise the term good enough. I never want to have a training material, a book, a course, a video that's good enough. I always want to make materials that are the best possible material that I could make. So that's why I'm going to read through every question, every answer, every explanation. And if I don't like them, I will delete them and I'll write a new one that's better. So this takes time. It takes a little bit more time than just throwing something out that for some reason other publishers tend to do. You will never see a question in my 1101 book that doesn't apply to the 1101 exam objectives. For example, that's a perfect example. There are a number of other training materials out there where they just take their old questions and then they lump new ones in there. And they say, we have a bunch of questions now. Look at all the questions we have. Yeah, most of them have nothing to do with the exam you're taking. But boy, look at all these questions. I've never understood that concept either. So it just takes more time. And I recognize that I'm on it. And I know everybody would like these books published because I see the questions. I see the messages you send in, multiples of these every day. And I recognize how important these are. But they're not going to be any good unless they're good from the very beginning. You only get one shot at this, as they say. So I want to be sure that what I present to you on day one is the best possible book you could get for this. But it's coming along very well. It's going very quickly. Things are being written I like what we're writing for it. I say this every time, but it's going to be one of the best 1101 or Core 1 training practice exam books that we've ever created because it's so specific to the exam objectives. Question from in the chat room from Cal, who says, should we review the older version of my A+ course and the newer one? Is that beneficial? Should I just review the new stuff? This is an important question because if you go look at my YouTube channel, there are A+ courses for the 600 series, the 700 series, the 800 series, the 900 series, the 1000 series, and the 1100 series. So we have produced 6 different A+ courses in my lifetime so far, in the lifetime of this company so far. Those 6 courses are 5 of them, I guess, or 4 of them are not even used anymore because they're for exams you can't take anymore. You can currently take the 1000 series or the 1100 series. So we have 2 courses, both of those for that. So I'm assuming in this case, you're referring specifically to the 1000 series and the 1100 series courses. The answer is you do not and should not go back and look at videos for a previous or different version of the exam that the one you're planning to take. You should only you should exclusively study from materials that match the version of the exam that you're planning to take. So if you're planning to take the 1101 and 1102, you should watch my videos for the 1101 and 1102. If you're planning to take the 1101 and 1102, do not go look at the 1001 and 1002 videos. First, you're learning things that aren't in the exam anymore, and you're not learning the things you need to know for the current set of exams. My courses are designed to be completely standalone. So if you're taking the 1101 exam, all you need to watch are the 1101 videos. You don't have to go back and look at other videos from another time. I don't take old videos and kind of put a new thing on top of them or beside them or create a different section of videos. Doesn't make sense. I create all brand new videos every single time. And those videos have been specifically written for that exam version. So very, very important. Make sure you do that. Don't go back and look at old videos for a newer exam. It doesn't help. It seems like there's a part of this that says, well, there's good stuff in there, and there probably is, but the good stuff in there has nothing to do with the exam you're taking. So once you're finished with your exam, if you really, really, really wanted to at that point, go back and look at the old videos, but do not do it during your studies. Make sure that the version of the exam materials you are using, the study materials you're using, make sure they match the version of the exam you're taking. That's such an important thing to say. I know I've said it 25 times now. That's how important it is. So make sure you go through all of that. And that kind of brings to Chris sort of made that point is, but what if you wanted to know something about some of those older technologies? What if this, and this is just a crazy thing to say, I know that this would never happen, but let's say you're supporting a Windows NT device in an environment that does, I don't know, cuts logs or something. It's just an industrial piece of equipment, and you are responsible for managing that Windows NT device. Well, you might need to go back to my 600 series videos where we actually talk about Windows NT. So there's a good example of why you might have to go back in time to find one of these older videos and watch it. But I don't think that doing that for your exam is a good idea at all. Do not. I wonder if I have. We're going to go to YouTube now, and I'm going to search for one of my old videos to see if I really do have one back there on Windows NT. Could it still be there? I'm sure 601. I want to say that 601 had some Windows NT stuff in it, didn't it? Did it not? Am I dreaming? That's very possible. Let's type in Windows NT and let's just see what happens. Videos 0. So nothing with the name NT in it, which probably makes sense. But maybe there is under the 601 series. Not 601. It would be the 301. Where did I start? Was it the 301, 401? 301 is Security Plus. The 220. We'll figure it out. With 601, 602 were the ones that were there. And we'd have to pour through. I'm going to show all 91 of those videos. So there's tons of it. The videos you'd have to pour through. Let's just pick one. Let's see if I happen to have that in that title and then search for Windows. And let's see what our options are on the Windows side. Let's just pick one. This is one for optimizing the Windows operating system. How could this possibly be any better? I don't have the volume turned up. This is a relatively newer one because I switched to 16.9 as working through this. You can't see me because I've got my big head in the way here. You're really missing the best part, which is that guy. Let's do full screen. Look at that fella. Oh, just a tyke, just a young man. It's a completely different studio. I got headphones on my head. What was this published in? Is there this is in beautiful 360p. So that gives you an idea. That's pretty impressive, right? 360. If you're ever in a case where you need 360p and video, that would be a good way to do it. This is, of course, one of the best things to have to deal with is looking through these videos. But I don't think there's anything NT. There was Windows NT was mentioned in this series. Oh, look, there's a demonstration. So beautiful 360p. Put that on your 4K television. That would be phenomenal. I'm already, it's blurring my eyes just a little bit to watch it. But there we are. We're fixing the print spooler. See what I mean by the Windows never changes very much? Oh, we have a problem with the print spooler. Well, how does the print spooler work? This could be the video for Windows 11 right here. It's exactly the same. There's not much changed. So there's a good example of taking one of the older videos and watching it. It really doesn't apply specifically to the newer stuff, but it's there. At least it's available. So yeah, if you wanted later on to go through the video and learn more about what's there and how you would use it, yeah, sure, why not? It's all available and on YouTube. I have all of the playlists on YouTube available. So if you want to go through them, let's see really what's there playlist-wise. Since you're asking, I'm going to flip through all of my playlists. We got the Intent 008 Network Plus. We got study groups for the 1001, 1002, the 1101, 1102 training courses. Let's just go back in time. So we've got 1 to 10 of many. We'll just go click, click, click. We go way back, did the Network Plus Intent 004, the 701 series courses. Do I not have a 601 playlist in here? How is that possible? I need to make one. I think it was probably the time when we didn't have the videos on YouTube yet. The first set of videos I ever created for these training classes were on blip.io. How's that one? Blip.io. No, blip.tv, excuse me, is what it was. It blip.io or was it blip.tv? I want to say it was blip.io. I'm saying that like it was. I'm not sure that's the case. I don't want to have this up on my screen since I have no idea what's there. Neither one of those domains do anything, however. So that's not, hold on, we're going to do something real quick here. Neither of those domains exist any longer, but I had 1 million views just on blip.io. So that was, actually it was 1 million views on a combination of blip.io. And then I moved from Blip because they shut down. I moved from there, or maybe they had not shut down yet, but I moved to Vimeo because Vimeo was the first service to come out with 1080p. So my videos were on Vimeo for really just a number of months. It was not long at all when we were on Vimeo, because then there was this new up-and-comer that kind of hit the stage called YouTube. And suddenly all the hip and trendy people were on the YouTube. And I realized, well, I'm not hip or trendy, but I should really be on YouTube because the hip and trendy people are. And when we made the move to YouTube, that's when it really, really blew up. And at that point, YouTube had just introduced HD. They had just introduced 1080p. So I was able to take my 1080p videos and move them over to YouTube and maintain the quality. But obviously the 601 series was made prior to that, so there's no playlist for that one. Nobody has really sent me a message arguing or complaining about the fact that there was no 601 playlist. So we may not ever end up making one, but they're there if you want to watch them. So the capabilities are there and available. Yeah, that ugly blue screen was a PowerPoint. I don't know what I was thinking, but there it was. I think this is a better background than the other one, although I've considered just changing the background to something completely kind of single colored so that it would be, this is a little distracting in some, I feel that it's distracting at times, and it tends to date itself over time. I have to redo the background or the studio set every number of years. Trying to find an easier way to do that. Yes, that's kind of the way it works. Is you just keep making the videos, you just keep putting them on the YouTube, you just keep making the training courses, and eventually they're out there for so many years. I think we, this past month in July, we just had sort of a renewal of our, sort of the anniversary of the Messer Studios Incorporation. The Messer Studios was, I think it's been around, technically, I think it's been around 16 years. Yeah, it was good. It was a good start. But we really only started doing these videos full time 7 or 8 years ago. So it's worked out. It's got a lot of good stuff there. Campbell in the chat room says, just got my first call back after applying to a ton of help desk jobs without certs. Huge thanks to you and your free video courses. You know, that's a good point. And what some people were bringing up about, I'm watching the videos, but not necessarily to get a certification. I'm watching the videos because I'm going into an interview and I need to know more about these technologies so that I can speak intelligently to somebody across the table. And that's a perfectly good reason to watch these videos and have them here. Yeah, it's not the a good point Michael makes in the chat room about doing a new set every few years. Just do a green screen. Well, that'd be that easy, wouldn't it? Green screens never quite look right. They never quite have what I'd like to have there. So that's why we don't have a green screen. This is not a green screen. That's a real set back there. Those are real things. That's my real Rubik's Cube, and it's my real picture of a 2600 joystick. And all of that's real stuff. So no green screen, no blue screen. Those just don't look good. But I was thinking maybe just a single color, maybe some light, a spotlight to add a little bit of some difference in there. We'll see. We'll see what we come up with. We got to have that. Does anybody know any good iPad apps and want to use Professor Messer's PDF notes and write notes on them digitally? Almost any PDF reader these days has a very good way of doing annotations. And in fact, the annotation capability within an iPad, let me pull mine off of here. The annotation capability of an iPad, you could use, for example, one of the Apple Pencils, and use that to be able to write directly on the screen with the existing PDF reader that's built into the iPad. But there's plenty of third-party PDF readers that allow you to do annotation. All of them will work. All of them work great. So any one of them work fine. And folks in the chat room are giving some suggestions of what they use for their iPad and to be able to work with that. It's a great setup to have some type of way to annotate. I didn't think I'd use the pencil so much. I got the Apple Pencil for my iPad. Turns out it comes in really handy because you can really, with a lot of detail, click things that are on the screen that your big fat finger can't do very easily. And then you start using it for annotation, and it's a game changer because you're writing. That's so great to use when you're writing with that. So nice to have there. But the preview capability that's built into the iPad works perfectly well for the notes. I wonder if I have my notes on here. I probably don't, but I'll pull them down while we're doing this, and we'll see how we can work with it. Yeah, there's big hands. They don't work great on tablets, but they work well enough. And that's all I need. For the perspective of writing on a tablet, using a tablet, well and good enough is just fine. I'm fine with that. Let's go to A+, the 1100 series, course notes. Let's download these course notes. Do I have to pay for these? Here we go. Let's download. Bear with me, everybody. We're downloading things. We're on our screen. Let's take a copy of this and send it over into our downloaded files. I want to put it in my downloads. Click, click. Oh, I've got Acrobat on here. I had no idea I had Acrobat on here. And let's put it in our downloaded files. We'll just stick it in our files. I wonder if I have my files on here. Probably just do it right here. This is if you're using anything on any tablet, just find a really good one to work through. And it is, I find it useful not only for the course notes, but for the practice exams, because then you can actually write on the practice exams. You can circle the things you find interesting. You can cross through things you know are wrong. It's just another way to annotate without really messing up an existing book. And that way, when you're done, you can erase them or get a copy of that PDF and use that on another device, or erase it all and start over and go through the questions again. So it's an easy way to step through that. Very, very useful, and I highly recommend using it that way. I see ITIL experience on job postings. Is that worth getting a cert in? Well, it would be worth getting a cert if the job that you're wanting to get needs that certification. They need an ITIL, IT Infrastructure Library. ITIL is what we're referring to. ITIL is what we just call it because that's the way we talk in the industry. The IT Infrastructure Library, that certification is a bit of a higher level cert. From the perspective of someone who will be working at a help desk, as a network administrator, a system administrator, a server administrator, you work with databases, you work with cloud, you work with anything else, the ITIL certification is worthless. It's worthless. It provides you with nothing you need to do your job, period. However, it gives a very broad perspective of how the business, if you want to call it that. I realize some people don't work for businesses or corporations. They work for organizations. But when I say the business, I'm really referring to the goals of the organization. It's a way to take an organization's goals and be able to understand those goals in a way that you could apply technology. That's what ITIL does. Now, if you're working at a help desk, you're working as the network administrator, you're working as the security team, has nothing to do with your daily job. But it's one of these certifications that managers really think you should have. Managers who have no idea what you do on a day-to-day basis think that you should have a broad understanding of what turns out to be a very complex relationship, which is how you take real-world requirements and be able to interpret those into the world of technology. This is not something that we tend to do as technologists. Usually that's done by a different group of people. But if you're working towards being a manager, a director, a senior director, a vice president, an executive vice president, a CFO, a CIO, a CEO, ITIL makes sense. But I think some organizations overthink or overdo the value of ITIL, and they think because it was helpful to them that it should be helpful to everyone in the organization, which is obviously not true. That's not how those things work. So I find no functional value, no day-to-day value from ITIL, but an incredibly important job value. If you want to get a job and the people wanting to hire you would like you to have ITIL, then you should have ITIL. That's the bottom line. One of the things that I found someone explained to me once that if you take your job description, if you've ever had a job, you know that your job has this very specific description that was written by usually the folks in HR in conjunction with the folks in IT. So let's look at a system administrator job description, and let me see if I can Google one real quick and tell you what this job description happens to be. So here is a system administrator job description that is generic. I think I could probably put this one up on the screen too. Objectives of this role: maintain essential IT operations, including operating systems, security tools, applications, servers, email systems, laptops, desktops, software, and hardware. Own projects, solutions, and key responsibilities within a larger business initiative. Handle business-critical IT tasks and systems that provide commercial advantage in a global marketplace. Enable faster and smarter business processes. And it just goes on and on. But those are the things that you're doing as part of the role. And then the daily and monthly responsibilities, which include performing sysadmin tasks, monitoring data center health, maintaining internal infrastructure, interacting with the help desk, performing routine and scheduled audits, and on and on. I was talking with someone not so recently, but it was a while back, and they were saying, well, you really only have one job description ever. For everybody, there's only one job description. That job description is make your boss happy. That's your one job description. Make your boss happy. And that's because every year when you go into these things, every year you have a job you sit down and you're evaluated. Oh, you did a fine job this year, and for that, we're giving you a 0.0001% increase in pay. Thank you so much for your hard work. That's your annual review. So the better your boss is the one giving you the annual review. So if your boss likes what you've been doing, you'll get a better review. I realize this is not always the case, but if you think about it logically, that would be the case. So the best way to get the best review and therefore the best increase in pay and perhaps the best potential for moving up in the organization is to make your boss happy. That's all you have to do. Now, to be fair, your boss will be happy if you do these things. So it's not that these responsibilities are worthless, because they are not. Because if you do all of these things and you do them very well, your boss will be happy. This is the way it works. So when you look at a job description and it says, if you have an ITIL certification, we will be happier with you. You will make us happy. And that's why I tell people, although ITIL is not going to help you day to day, in fact, you may find that in your entire career, the things you learn on the ITIL certification are never part of your job, ever. That you will never get to a point in the organizations you work with where the information in ITIL will ever apply to you. But it doesn't matter, because it would make them happy if you had it. And ultimately, that's what we want to do, is make them happy. You know, maybe they have a better idea. Maybe they have a broader perspective of what ITIL is going to give you and what might help. It doesn't help very much at the technical level. Now, I guess we could have an argument about it and say, no, there's things about making that translation between the business and technology that does apply to technologists on a day-to-day level, and we can have an argument about that, I guess. Generally speaking, there's no connection to that at all. And I'm speaking as someone who did work at a director level, who did have a responsibility for making that link between the business and the technology and putting together projects with the people that would build those connections between those two. It's incredibly important for someone in that job role. So I'm not saying that ITIL is not important, because it absolutely is. It's just not important to technologists, not important to the people doing the day-to-day. But it's important if you want to get a job. So there's your balancing act. I think that seeing it on job postings means that organization is more interested in you having that cert. And if that's what it takes to get the job, then you should go get that cert. That's always been my priority. If they don't ask for A+, don't get your A+ necessarily. I think it will help you, but if they don't ask for it, then that's probably not your priority. If they ask for ITIL, but not A+, you should go get your ITIL. So I know I don't have an ITIL training. I will never have an ITIL training, because I find it remarkably boring information for someone being a technologist. But, and I don't think the people I talk to on a day-to-day basis through these videos and training classes and live streams, I don't think those are the directors and the managers anyway. So having an ITIL course is not going to help. Plus, I think you have to license it or something. That's how ridiculous it is. So I always have questions when you can't do training materials unless you license from us the ability to share that knowledge. Well, I'm out right now, because that doesn't even make sense. What are you doing? So that's the important part. It's other people in the chat room going, yeah, I took an ITIL class, and when I woke up, we were done. I agree. It's just not interesting stuff. But it's a checkbox, and sometimes you need those checkboxes to get that job. Thomas, you are correct in the chat room. Thomas says, so if I just study the notes, I get this question a lot. You're absolutely right, Thomas. This 57-page set of course notes. So that's all I need to do is just read the course notes, right? I'm good? Done? Right? That's all I need? No, it's not. You're correct, Thomas, in that reading a 57-page set of course notes by itself and alone is not enough to prepare you to take the exam. The A+ exams are remarkably broad. and deep enough that you have to know a lot of information. The course notes are quite literally notes from my course. And I think that just reading the notes gives you the same amount of knowledge as someone who decides not to read Little Women, but instead reads the Cliff Notes for Little Women. It's a very different experience. So I think that you need to not read obviously the set of course notes are important. They provide you with a summary, a very specific, consolidated, and precise summary of exactly what's in the videos, but it's not designed to be used as a standalone, nor as a single item to study for your exams. I will say, as I always say, there are no shortcuts. There are zero shortcuts. You need videos, you need books, you need course notes, you need practice exams, you need labs. You need as much as you can get your hands on. Why wouldn't you try to get your hands on so much? That's why. So I tell people, no, you can't just take one thing and use that and you've got everything you need. Nothing in training classes or certifications has ever worked that way. And unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. You have to have all kinds to be able to get through this. So as much as I wish I could create one thing and I could push over this one thing, goes, here's the one thing here it is, the one thing you need. And this is all you need to pass your exams. That one thing doesn't exist. That's why if you go to my site, there are videos, there are books, there are labs, there's practice exams. There's all of these things because we need all of those things. Pretty important. Yeah, you'll find because, going back to the conversation with ITIL, because they license, I believe this is ITIL I'm thinking about, they license the training, the ability to train on this content. It therefore creates first a lack of content in the rest of the world. There aren't going to be YouTube videos showing a lot of detailed ITIL information because people had to pay a lot of money just for the privilege of teaching ITIL. I don't even understand that concept, but it is laughable. But it also increases the cost of the training because that cost has to get pushed down to somebody to be able to make it profitable. So already it's creating a number of stumbling blocks to be able to learn that content. Jeremy says, should I wait to study the A+ course since it expires soon? Well, I would probably not. If you're starting your studies, I would probably not start with the one that expires, but the 1100 series has been out since April. So start with that one. It's already available. There's plenty of books out. There's content out. There's things you can do with it. So absolutely go have a look at what's available on the market for the 1100 and get started. That has been out for months and will be still around for years. So you can't go wrong. But just make sure you get the right ones. You don't want to start studying the 1000 series right now because it's going to disappear in October. That's not what you want either. October 20th, everything goes away. And that is not a position you want to be in. You want to be sure that you have everything in place for the latest series. This was a question that came up. When does Security Plus retire? That's a good question. I happen to have a list of all of the retirement dates. So let me pull up my notes. The SY0601 is the current Security Plus exam. It was released on November the 12th of 2020. And the estimated retirement date for that one then would be May of 2024. So not May of next year, but a year from May of next year. So you got plenty of time. May of 2024 would be the estimated retirement. Now, the exact retirement date, we don't know. CompTIA has not said because it's so far in the future. Those dates tend to change a little bit. But if you're studying for the 601, you got plenty of time. Got plenty of time to be able to go through that. How much time should I take to prepare for the exam? Everybody is a little bit different. But I think one of the best things you can do to help prepare yourself or to understand how long this will take for you is to go to the exam objectives. because the exam objectives tell you, let's just go to one page of the exam objectives. Let's start here at the top. I'm going to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. So the first section, the first domain in the 1101 exam objectives is mobile devices. And the first section is section 1.1, given a scenario, install and configure laptop hardware and components. This includes hardware/device replacement for battery, keyboard/keys, random access memory, RAM, hard disk drive, HDD, solid state drive, SSD, migration. You have HDD to SDD replacement, wireless cards, physical privacy and security components, including biometrics and near-field scanner features. Now, that's just the first section of the first domain. But if you can go through all of these and explain to someone else how you would install and configure those components, then you're done with that section. Now you can go to the next section, which is compare and contrast the display components of mobile devices and all of those different bullets that are there. So if you can do all of that in a day, you could probably get through this in a couple of weeks. If you can do all of this in a week, you'll get through this in a couple of months. So this is where the timing is different for everybody. So this is always very commonly one where you are trying to learn at a pace that makes sense for you, and everybody has a different pace. So when people ask, how long should I take to prepare? Some people take a week, some people take 2 weeks, some people take 6 months. So it just depends on how you like to study, how much time you have to study, how knowledgeable you are in this information before you stepped in the door, how much information you have available to study from. It just depends. So I would say on average, one of these exams for A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus tend to take 2 to 3 months on average. So that should give you a starting point anyway. I don't think there is really I think that's an average with a very big standard deviation. I think there's a lot of variability in that average. I don't think it's just 2 to 3 months for everybody. I think it's a very broad and very wide distribution there, but that should at least give you a point to start with on this. Regarding the exam retirement dates, Michael asks, how come this one is 4 years instead of the usual 3? It's not, neither one of those is actually accurate. When an exam is released, it's generally available for 3.5 years. So when the old A+, well, we really can't do the old ones because COVID changed all of the scheduling very badly. But for Security Plus, which is a really good example, Security Plus was released on November the 12th of 2020. 3.5 years would be May of 2024. That's where that number comes from. And again, only an estimate, but 3.5 years is how long an exam is available once it's hit the market. And so that's where those numbers come from, 3.5. It's not 3 years and it's not 4 years. It's right in the middle. You were spot on, 3.5. You were right to begin with. So that's where that number came from. From the night surgeon, hey professor, do you retake the exams yourself every time new ones are released to get the firsthand experience in order to make your videos/notes/practice questions? You know, I used to. One of the problems though is when you take the exam, you have to sign a candidate agreement. That's what that's called, a CA, candidate agreement, which is effectively a non-disclosure agreement saying that part of it is a non-disclosure agreement saying that you will not disclose anything you see here. And it's very broad. It doesn't say you can't talk about the terms we use. No, it doesn't say that. It says you can't talk about anything you see in this exam. Anything. Technically, that means I can't tell you how many questions I got. Technically, I can't tell you what topics I happen to see on the exam. Technically, I can't tell you anything. So what's the point of taking the exam if I can't tell you? In fact, I have more of an ability to give you a perspective of what's on the exam if I don't take it. So in the past number of years, I have intentionally not taken the exam so that I can better explain to you what's in the exam. I know it doesn't seem to make sense, but it does. And it works quite well when I do it that way. This allows me also to give you warnings, ideas, recommendations, and thoughts around things on the exam that I would not be able to give you if I had taken the exam myself. So I think after a while, I used to take them every time. So I've taken a lot of CompTIA exams, don't get me wrong, but I think I got the idea at this point. I think I've got the flow. I understand what they're asking. I understand the style of the questions they're asking. I pretty much have got it at this point. I don't necessarily need to take the exam to understand what will be asked of the people on the exam. So we do a ton of research on this. We do a ton of tracking on it. There's a lot of intel that we gather about the exams that we're able to get without taking the exams. And I use that intel to be able to present it in a way that I don't have to worry about getting people upset that I'm saying something I shouldn't be saying, because I have no contractual arrangement with anybody over what I say. And I think at the end that helps you. Is the A+ test easier than others? Well, I guess it would be. It's also harder than others. There you go. That was an easy one. Next question. Maybe some detail would be useful, E. It's E in the chat room is asking if it's easier than others. I think the A+ and Network Plus exams are comparable in their difficulty level. I think Security Plus is probably a little bit more difficult, but not much. I think the difficulty levels are very similar, but obviously the topics are very different. A+ topics are very different than Network Plus, which is very different than Security Plus. There's not a ton of, well, there hasn't been traditionally a ton of hands-on on Security Plus. Now there's more than there ever used to be. Network Plus obviously is a lot of the networking side of things on it, so it's a very different exam than A+ might be. But I think the exams themselves they're not complex exams. They're not written to be difficult. In fact, I often tell people that if you know your content, you know the exam objectives, you've studied the acronyms, and you really have gone through every bullet and you're able to explain every bullet back to someone else, then you're going to sit down on the exam and it will be very obvious what the right answers happen to be. I think the exam is written very well in that if you know the content, the answers almost jump off the page at you. You know it's not A, you know it's not B, you know it's not C, it's absolutely answer D. There's really no question. They don't even make it so that it is close to another answer. Now, there are certainly questions where they ask a question, ask you what the best option might be. And of the 4 options, 2 of those or maybe even 3 of those you've done before to solve that problem. But the things they're asking are not the best answer. There's always a best answer you have to know. And if you know your content, if you know the materials, the best answer will jump right off the page at you, right off the screen. You'll be able to see it immediately. Oh, that's clearly what the best answer would be. So that's the key. And I get it because Netrospect in the chat room mentions this and says, I've struggled with the way the A+ exam and CompTIA words their questions. And after missing the mark by 1 or 2 questions, I figure I'll skip A+ and move to Network Plus. What are my thoughts? I think if you go back a number of years, I would agree with you that the questions were written in a way that made me wonder if the people writing it had English as their first language, or maybe they took the questions, ran them through Google Translate into some other language, and then back to English through Google Translate, and we ended up with these oddly shaped questions. But I think over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, maybe more, they've done a very good job of making the questions very straightforward, very specific. The questions are very obvious. The ambiguity was removed completely, and they're written in English, finally. For the people that are English speaking, they're written in English. I don't know what they do for the other languages. I don't know how they translate them. I don't know the process they go through. But for English speakers, the questions are very straightforward, and they're just obvious questions. There's very normal questions. They're just like the questions, and they're similar in tone and style to the questions we did today. This person is trying to perform a particular function. When they do when they do this, here's what happens. Why did this happen? I mean, that's a very straightforward way to ask a question. It is a scenario, and I think maybe that's what throws a lot of people, is that it's not a trivia question. You will never get a question on your exam that says, what port number is used by SNMP? That's what I think a lot of people are hoping for. I think that's the question a lot of people wish was on the exam. But let's take the question we had today. So on the exam, they could ask you, what port number is used by SNMP? Or they could ask you, a network administrator needs to monitor the router at a remote site. Which of the following should be enabled in the firewall? And they give you the different port numbers. It's the same question. What port number is used by SNMP? But notice you had to make a couple of jumps to get there. First, you had to read through the question. Maybe this is what throws people. A network administrator needs to monitor the router at a remote site. So already you have to take that and translate it into, what does that mean? Oh, that's SNMP. Okay, next part of the question. Which of the following should be enabled in the firewall? Oh, I need to know the port number for SNMP. Okay, now, it's UDP port 161. Okay, got it. Now you can lock it in. That is a much more complicated question than simply asking you, what port number is used by SNMP? But the exam is not a trivia question. The exam has no trivia questions on it. Hardly any of the questions have any and I call a trivia question is one where they say, what is this? It's that. What is this? It's that. Almost all of the questions take you through a multi-step process to finally get to the answer. And because of that, this really does require you to go through a couple of mental gymnastics and step through the process of understanding, oh, monitoring a router, that's SNMP, could be SSH, could be either one of those. Let's look at the answers and see, well, SSH is not one of the port numbers listed, so let's go with SNMP. Done. So that's a really good example of a question that could be answered in multiple ways, but the possible answers narrow it down to one, and that's the one you should choose. That's it. So almost all of the questions on the exam are multiple choice questions. I would say if you were to look at an exam, and we've already mentioned the exam can be as many as 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions. A number of people have said, I got 80, I got 78, I got 84 on my exam. So you probably won't get 90, but you'll get some number that's close to 90. On the exam, a handful of those tend to be performance-based questions. So 5 questions, 3 questions, somewhere in there, 7 questions, a handful plus or minus of questions are performance-based questions. That means the rest of the questions are multiple choice. So probably about 80 questions on the exam are multiple choice. That's a good number. That doesn't make them easier. As people will tell you on the exam, multiple choice questions don't mean easier questions because you have to hop through all of those different steps in a single question. So that's why if you're ever on this exam, you're trying to figure out what these answers are, you just have to break down the question into those multiple steps and follow it all the way to the end to figure out what the answer might be. It's almost a strategy, and I mentioned these strategies in my my exam hacks ebook, but there's a series of strategies to really help you during the exam to learn the style and sort of the flavor of the questions that they ask. And then finally, you get down to where the answer might be. And it helps if you're ready for that. I think a number of people walk into the exam cold. They have no idea what's ahead of them. And I've had people come back to my Discord after they were done and say, well, I didn't do very well on my exam. Man, the first handful of questions I got were these crazy drag and drop things with matching, and I had to do something at the command line, and I'm like, well, yeah, those are the performance-based questions. Like, oh, I had no idea that was going to happen. So these are folks that walk into their exam and have no idea what they're about to be faced with. Of course it's daunting. If you had no idea performance-based questions were on the exam, can you imagine sitting down at the exam and the first 4 questions you get are these involved, complex scenarios with drag and drops? After the 4th question, I wonder if my life was over. Like, I've got another 80 of these to go. Now, fortunately, then it transitions into multiple choice, and the rest of the exam is multiple choice. But could you imagine walking to the exam and have no idea that was going to hit you, and suddenly that's what you get first thing? And you don't even understand what you're seeing enough to know there are strategies on how to handle those questions, and in some cases, skip them completely and come back to them later. I mean, there's strategies that can help you answer those questions without even thinking about them, but you have to do other things first. So if you don't know that there are options for you, I can imagine you'd be frustrated at taking the exam for the first time. So you're in this weird position. Not only do you have to study for the content on this exam, you kind of have to study for the exam itself, the operation of the exam. In the chat room, some folks have mentioned a good example of this is there are buttons that allow you to flag a question. So if you're reading a question through and you think, oh, I do not know the answer to this, or this question looks like one that's going to take me 10 minutes to walk through, you can flag it and go to the next question. And then when you go through all the questions, you're presented with a page that tells you, there's some questions you flagged. You can go back to the flagged questions just by clicking the number, and it takes you back to that question again. So it's more of a time management feature, that flagging, so that you can get through the hard stuff, mark it so you know you need to go back to it, because you should always go back to these and answer something. But you can skip to the easier questions, get those done, get them locked in, get it so that you can get points for those, and then go back to the harder ones and try to get through the harder ones before your time runs out. That's really the key. But imagine if you didn't know there was a flag button, and then you get on the exam and you think, what's that button do? What is that checkbox for? How does that work? There's all of these strategies that you don't even know could have been working for you, but because you don't know that, they're now working against you. So knowing the structure of the exam, knowing the tone and the tenor of the questions, knowing your options that are available when you're taking the exam, all work in your favor if you've done the legwork up front. And they work against you if you haven't. So that is really critical. Love the chat room with a $10 super chat who says, finally have my A+, watched all your videos for review. Thank you. Congratulations. First, congratulations on your A+. I'm curious to know, Love, did you take the 1000 series exam or the 1100 series exam? And once we know that, I have other questions for you. But first, congratulations on your A+. Also interested to know what you're planning to do next. And of course, thank you for the $10 super chat. Love says finish the 1001 and 1002. So you locked in the current versions of the exam before they got retired, which is just phenomenal. Indeed, I want to even say, probably not true at this point because we're so close to retirement, but I think the 1001 and 1002 slightly easier to study for because it's been out for so long. There's more material on the market. Now, that advantage has quickly gone away as time has gone on because now there are more 1100 series products on the market, and obviously the 1000 series exams will retire in October. Your window, your ramp is slowly getting smaller. That runway is not allowing your plane to take off at this point. Your runway, you got to have a really fast plane to be able to get off this runway at that point. Love says, love this. Love. Up next, AWS Solutions Architect. That's the Amazon Web Services. I have the AWS CCP already, thinking CCSP2. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. That is a great option. The one things we know are hot right now, super hot, are cloud security. Cloud and security, two different things. Cloud, incredibly hot, super hot, and security, super hot. All of those things. The problem is you can't really jump into security from a standing still. If you know nothing about technology, you can't just jump into the security. It doesn't work that way. The only way to really get a security job is to know operating systems, know networking, and not just know them, but really be an expert in operating systems and networking. Then you're almost ready for a security position. There's not a lot of entry-level security positions. You really have to work into those. But cloud, tons of cloud positions out there. Tons of cloud positions out there. So it's another good example on how you'd work through this. Michael says, and thank you, Love, by the way, for the $10 super chat. Every dollar keeps this crazy thing going. So we appreciate your support, and congratulations on your A+ again. Michael says, Professor, I thought you did your Security Plus exam first. Ha, ha, ha. Did I say something different? Maybe you did. I did do, from CompTIA's perspective, I did do Security Plus first, then Network Plus, then A+. I must have missed something I said. Michael's way ahead of me anyway. And I want to say, I think the exams themselves from CompTIA A+, Network Plus, Security Plus are relatively unique. And you probably, Love will agree with this, and other people in the chat room have taken other exams. If you go take a Microsoft exam, you go take an AWS exam, you go take a Oracle exam, anything else that's out there, go take a Cisco exam. Those exams are very different than the CompTIA exams. They're different in the style of questions. They're different in their complexity and difficulty levels. They all have a different way of approaching problems, and they have a different way of presenting the questions to you on the exam. And I think everybody's trying to find the best way to do that. Is really the problem. Is that how do you take a concept like managing partitions in Windows and try to make an exam question about that, when indeed a lot of it is you doing things on the screen. So we've transitioned into doing things on the screen, except now that creates a lot of complexity in the exam app that you're using, which sometimes works great and sometimes doesn't work great. So that's another problem with this. Okay, that makes sense, Michael. Michael says, no, it's the fact you said you can't just jump into security, but in fact, my first CompTIA certification was security. So what the heck am I talking about? You're absolutely right. It just so happened to be when I took my Security Plus, I was a systems engineer at Network Associates dealing specifically with their security products. So their antivirus, anti-malware, the corporate management of those. We had firewalls at that point. It was a proxy-based firewall, but we had firewalls. IPS, PGP. I mean, at Network Associates, we had tons of products. Network Associates, by the way, a company does not exist anymore in that name, but it was a merged company between McAfee Associates and Network General to make Network Associates. See how that worked? It was during the time when every technology company was buying every other technology company. And I think we bought 20 companies, maybe just 12, while I was there. We were just adding on and adding on and adding on to our portfolio. And it was all security products. So I thought, well, I need a security certification to go along with it. So I went and got my Security Plus. That's kind of what started this whole crazy project, this whole crazy experiment in creating videos and putting them online, was really getting that Security Plus. And then going after Network Plus and A Plus was just more, it's really more research than anything else. It worked out. The research helped, as it turned out. So you're right. You can't jump into security first. It just happened to be I already had a security job. I sort of did it backwards. I got a security job and then got a security certification. It was another one of those things, though. When you're working for a billion-dollar corporation that has just management level upon management level upon management level, at the end of the year, you have to show that you've done something in your role in that organization. Forget the fact that I had a quota and I hit my quota. And that really probably the thing the company wanted the most out of me. They always want more. They always would like to see, oh, what are you doing for yourself? What about your own personal growth? What about that? They always do that. Like, you don't care about my growth. You don't seem to ask about my growth until a year goes by, but every week you're asking me about my quota. So I think the quota seems to be the thing you're most interested in. But they didn't. They also wanted the other stuff too, which is why I went and got my Security Plus. So at the end of the year, I was able to say, well, I got my quota, which you ask about every day, but then I also got my Security Plus, which we tend to only ask about every year. It's like going to your family reunion. Oh, there's the one, we could talk about that one topic that we always talk about every year. That one thing. Well, that's in the meeting, that annual meeting where hopefully I've done everything my boss wanted, and getting the Security Plus made my boss happy. Because then they were able to put down on their list, I managed this person, I managed James into getting not only his quota, but he improved his personal skills by getting his Security Plus. Made my manager very happy. And I got my 0.00001% increase in pay. That made me very happy too. That made me happy. It's never enough, but that's what we did. That's why I got the Security Plus first. And that's why it's this weird thing when you get into a role that is so specific. If you ever get into a sales position, or really sales engineer is what I was. I was not the salesperson. I was the technical person who made sure that the product did the technical things we said that it did. And when you get to that level, that there's really a very specific set of things they want you to do, which is make your number, make your quota. Did you make your quota? How's your quota going? We're just checking in on how the quota looks. Did you get the quota? The quota number's here. Have you made your quota number? So they just constantly ask you about that. So it's weird at the end of the year they go, and what else have you done? Like, nothing. You didn't tell me to do anything else. Every day you're telling me to get my quota. And I did 200% of my quota. Yes, but you didn't provide any personal improvement in your life. You needed something more to make yourself more knowledgeable. And yes, okay. How about a Security Plus? Yes, that's what we want. Security Plus, great. Check. See you next year. And then we'll do it again next year. And next year I showed up, I guess, with Network Plus. Is that how it worked? I think it is. At that point, I stopped doing those types of things. But at that point, I went to a true security company that had their own certifications. And at that point, made it very easy for me to get a certification every year, because we would update our own certification every year, and I got Palo Alto Network certifications every year. And every year they'd update the certification. Every year I'd go get another one. Just go get the updated cert. And got those Palo Alto Network certifications until I left. So that worked out great too. But that's another good example of how in security anyway, there are some very broad security certifications. There's the CISSP, there's the Security Plus. There's maybe CEH, which is a bad example because it's a bad cert provided by a questionable organization. But those are very broad security related certs. When you get past those, most employers would like you to have a very specific certification from the manufacturer. So if you're going into an environment where they have Palo Alto Networks firewalls, they would like you to have a Palo Alto Networks firewall certification. If they have Checkpoint firewalls, they would like you to have a Checkpoint certification. If they have Cisco firewalls, well, then they would like you to either have a Checkpoint or Palo Alto Networks, because they're throwing those out and putting in a real firewall. That's the difference. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Rich, in the chat room, for asking me if I met my quota. That doesn't have any type of PTSD hitting me at all. I got to tell you, I think that's where that comes from. Every day you're getting the question. Well, of course, getting the question. And I think that's a valid question. I think for someone who's working towards that goal, of course they should be asking you that, and you should be making your quota. It's just one of those things that's very funny. And when they ask, and what else have you done? Like, you don't want me to do anything else. Why should I do something else? You've hired me for a very specific thing that happens to have something to do with dollars and cents, that could not be more associated with the revenue of the company. It's not like we're doing something in shipping and receiving, and there's a connection between that and and making revenue, but it's a disconnect between, it's not a direct relationship to revenue, but the people that are selling the products have a direct relationship to revenue. And when they are so focused on that, and you're a public company and the price of the stock could depend on the things that you're bringing into the company, those are big things to have to worry about. And so, of course, they're going to ask you if you made your quota. Of course, they're going to talk to you about the things that are happening. And are you finding the solutions the customers want? Are they buying these solutions? That's really what they want to know. And that also means that you as a technologist need to be more familiar with that product than anybody else in the world. And that's also another level of responsibility that is on your head. So not only do you have to know the product in and out, and if you don't know something about the product, you better know who to talk to, but you also have to be able to explain to someone else why this is valuable to the point that they would be willing to spend their money to purchase that product. It's a challenging role, but it's a very satisfying role. It's one I was in for, well, over 20 years in IT. Love doing it. A lot of travel, but a lot of fun. Something new every day. You meet a lot of amazing people. I got to visit tons of customers. I got to see, one of my best parts of that job was doing the data center tours, because everybody wants to show you their data center. And I love looking at the data centers. It was a perfect marriage because people like to show off all the hard work they've done, and I love seeing it. And I ask tons of questions. Oh, what is this? What'd you do here? How's it doing with the cooling? What type of system do you have? What's the problem here? You know, those are great things to do. So I've seen data centers in Australia and Bangkok and London and Scotland and France and everywhere, it seems, and even Canada. I've seen data centers all over the world, and it's remarkable, the things you find. Just a great fun type of thing to do. And then at the end of the day, did you get your quota? Did you meet your quota? That's where it all comes down to. When it's done right, pretty much every organization I worked for in that type of role, it was done right. And we had just a ton of fun, and we're able to work with fantastic people. It really was very different than any other type of technology job I can think of. And it was one that if anybody's ever interested in sales engineering, it's called sales engineer. Sometimes it's called systems engineering, but it's sort of pre-sales technologist is what it is. We can talk for hours. I can tell you the good parts. I can tell you the bad parts. I can tell you the fun parts. I can tell you the not so fun parts. There's always stories, but it allows you to get around and see a lot of different stuff. And it's, I think really that's what IT is about. I really do find that to be sort of the fun part of IT is you get to make the decision. Could I have taken a different position and worked in IT security or worked for a company where I didn't have a quota and I didn't travel around the world? Absolutely. You have that option. You figure out what type of job you want. You figure out what type of thing you would like to do. You want to know if you have the flexibility to travel or not travel, to stay at home or not stay at home, to work in a data center or not. You get to decide. You just need to find the right job for what you want to do. And you will eventually find that, because as you work through the knowledge, you start gaining the knowledge, you start collecting the knowledge, you start being more familiar with these technologies and being able to start deciphering and understanding the problem-solving process. That's when it all starts working for you. And that's where you also start being a very valuable technologist, and people want to hire you to solve these problems for them. Couldn't work better. And it's really something that allows you to pick the right job for you rather than you having to suffer through a job that doesn't fit. And really, there's not a lot of places in the world that allow you to do that. IT is one of those markets that gives you, as the person being hired, as the end user, as the technologist, you have more control over what you want to do with your career than the people hiring you do. You don't really see that a lot of places. And all it takes from you is dedication, an interest, a curiosity, a need or a want to be able to learn more, and to perhaps even have part of your DNA want to be able to solve problems. Puzzles are what really kept me going in those types of jobs, because you'd run across problems or scenarios or challenges every day that you had to find an answer for. And without having a good, strong foundation, you wouldn't be able to answer those particular problems. Very, very, very interesting position to be in. Always available to talk some shop for the folks that are doing that. That's what I would learn. What's a good place? Katie asks, what's a good place to learn or to earn the trifecta of certifications? Trifecta. I need an echo in here. Trifecta of certification. I think you're referring, of course, to the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Many people refer to that as the trifecta. Does going from nothing to all three within a year or two seem realistic? It's not unrealistic. There are people that do that all the time. Just rather not stay in a position I know I don't plan to work long. So one of the things that, if you're ever in this type of scenario where you're trying to say, I need to collect a bunch of certs and put them in a big pile so I can do something with them, don't be too quick to create the pile of things. Employers want you to be very knowledgeable in a set of subjects, and a very focused set of subjects. For example, if you are starting at a data center, you don't need to have a CCNA certification, a Cisco Certified Network Administrator. You're not going to be doing anything in your job that requires you to log into a switch or a router, or to do any type of involved network troubleshooting or packet captures. That's just not going to happen in an entry-level position in IT. But what we want you to be knowledgeable in is Active Directory, managing the tickets that come in, talking with people about the problems they have, stepping through the troubleshooting process to understand more about what their problem happens to be, and then properly assigning those tickets to the people that can best solve the problem. That's a very specific set of requirements, and it also requires you to know a lot about the technologies that people are using. But you probably don't need to be an expert in the network. You probably don't need to be an expert in security. You probably don't need to be an expert in cloud to be able to do that. So piling on too many certifications at one time can actually work against you. What you really should do is go find the jobs, go through whatever job listing is in your particular area. If you're in the US, go to LinkedIn Jobs, go to Indeed, go to Dice, go to whatever you want to go to, whatever your favorites are. Go to those job sites, find the job postings that really apply to you. They're jobs that you would really be qualified for. So you have to be very honest with yourself to find the jobs where you would be qualified for those jobs, and then see what they would like you to have. Now, if on those jobs they list you need to have your A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, okay, go get the trifecta. That makes sense. It's kind of, I doubt you're going to find that, though. I think what you'll find for a particular job is there will be some commonalities as you look through job after job after job. I described this process in a video that's in the YouTube video description on how to get a job in IT with no experience. It's a 30-minute video, which I know is a hugely long video in the world of YouTube, but it is just chock full of data. It's just constant information. There's no fluff in any part of that video. And I described this process as go collect all of those jobs and create a spreadsheet. For each one of those jobs, what are the requirements? How much education do they want you to have? What type of education would they prefer seeing? Are there certifications they would like you to have? And then beyond that, are there things you need to know beyond the scope of a certification? And make a list of those so that you can go through whatever it is, 12 jobs, 20 jobs, 30 jobs. You should start to see some commonalities in all of those. You should start to be able to put together what you're starting to see over and over. Hey, all of these jobs ask me for an A+, or all of these jobs are asking me for A+ and Security Plus, or none of these jobs are asking me for an A+, and they're all asking me for Security Plus, which might happen if you're in the DC area. It just depends on where you are. So there will be a need for a lot of different things that you bring to the table, but you don't want to bring too much to the table. because first, it doesn't help you in every position. And secondly, it might work against you. If you show up to a job that is a help desk position and you bring in your CCNA, they may look at this and go, this person has their CCNA. They are way too qualified for this position. They're going to be bored answering phone calls about password resets and my keyboard isn't working. So this one's not a good fit for them. We'll go to the next person. So being overqualified for a job is absolutely a thing. Hiring managers look for these types of things because they don't want to hire you and then a month later they have to go through the entire process again because you're so bored you didn't last. So don't overdo it. Now, if you have, for those of you that have your CCNA and you have your A+, and you're applying for a job at a help desk, you might want to leave the CCNA off. You might want to consider pulling that back and just saying you have an expertise in switches and routers, or you have a familiarity with Cisco switches. That's it. Don't say any more. And if they say, what's your familiarity with Cisco switches? Oh, I've logged into a Cisco switch before and made some configuration changes, something very minor. Thanks for asking. I would never tell them I had a CCNA. Would never do it. I would always say, yeah, I've done a little bit of that. But let's talk about the job here, which has nothing to do with logging into a switch or doing anything with routers. Let's talk about this job. That's the real key. So don't be overqualified. You never want to be in that position. Don't give them excuses for not hiring you. It would seem, it's almost seems like it doesn't make sense. Wouldn't they want somebody that was knowledgeable in Microsoft Windows and understood Azure Cloud and had familiarity with AWS and knew something about Red Hat and had their Cisco certifications? They had searched for all these. Wouldn't they want to hire that person? No. No, they don't. Not for that particular position. Probably for not many positions. That's probably not where, I don't know of one position that's like that. My position, maybe my job, that would be it, but not in many others. That's kind of it. You really want to focus your resume, your cover letter, and you should be doing a cover letter. And if you're not doing a cover letter, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I will fight you on this. I give an example in my second video, which is 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. Also in the YouTube video description. I give you an example of a T cover letter, letter T cover letter. That's all you need to know. Simple. You can put it together in 10 minutes, but it's very valuable. So you would have the cover letter very focused on the job. You would have the resume written and maybe even leave things out if they're not specific to that job. You would highlight the things that they are looking for at the very top of your resume. So you're also customizing your resume for every job you're posting. Yes, you are. I will fight you on that too. Then when you sit down and have the interview, you want to stick to the job itself and just really focus on the job requirements and go through all the job requirements, understand what they're asking about, ask them questions about the job requirements, ask them questions about the company. Don't go off into, hey, and what happens next year if I want to go do Cisco stuff? Oh, hold your horses. Hold on now. You need this job first. Don't talk about Cisco yet. Talk about this job. Then get that job. Then once you're there, go hang out with the Cisco folks. Go hang out with the network team. Or wherever you want to go next. Let's say the network's where you want to go next. You learn who's on the network team. You learn their names. You find out what projects they're working on. You ask them if they need any extra help on the weekends. You ask them if they need help setting up some new switches into a rack. We're moving stuff in the data center from one rack to the other. You need another pair of hands. You volunteer whatever you can. You start learning the things they need to know, and they're going to remember when a job opens up, you had an interest in the networking team. That's how you leverage this in there. And then when they sit down and talk to you, they say, well, we really need somebody who's really familiar with Cisco. You can say, I have my CCNA. I did not know that. Well, yeah, I know because I didn't put it on my resume, but I do have my CCNA. They go, well, we need you on this. See, that's where you leverage that additional knowledge that you have. You only tell people when it makes sense for you. And I know technologists, we love to tell people we're smart. We love to tell people we have all of these credentials. We love to tell people, I mean, we've seen the signatures. You see them, their name, here's their phone number, and then a bunch of certifications all written out. There's 20 of them on the line. They have all these certs. They tell you about it, which is great. I don't see any problem with that as long as you have the job already. But you got to have the job first. Make sure you get the job first. Then you can put all of that in your email signature. But don't blow the horn. Always hold back. Always give them just a little bit more to look forward to. So that's the key. Syed in the chat room. Hey again in the chat room with the $7.29 AEDs for this. I don't know what that is. Syed, you have to fill me in again. Did we do this before? Syed is 13, got his Network Plus, and is just killing it. And wants to be a doctor. No, he doesn't. Doesn't want to be a doctor. He wants to be a technologist. It's Dubai currency. Excellent. Thank you. I'm always learning something. Every day I get to learn something from you guys. Thank you. And I, all caps say it says, I don't want to be a doctor. But you might be able to leverage this technology that you know into something relating to healthcare. As lots of people I work with in the healthcare industry who are technologists, and the stuff they work with is crazy amazing. The bandwidths they work with, the technologies on the imaging side, the things they do with storage and access of data, remarkable. So it's one of those where there's a job in IT wherever you want to be. We've already talked about some of these. I've already talked about being in the nuclear power plant, going to manufacturing facilities, going to financial organizations, all of those, plenty to pour through. But what you're going to find is that I've even worked with healthcare organizations as a systems engineer. So I feel like in some way I've done some work in a healthcare environment. Think of the redundancy you have to have in healthcare. Imagine you don't want a hospital to suddenly turn off. That would not be good. What if all the power went out in the hospital? That would be literally a life event that is, or a lack of. It's something that would be a serious healthcare problem if the power went out. Now imagine the network, almost as critical. In some cases, just as. If you're not able to get information across that network that is critical healthcare information, people's lives can be on the line. So there are valuable skills you can bring to the table as a technologist. You don't have to work in healthcare. You don't have to do the healthcare part, but you are facilitating the process, and it's incredibly important. They work with some amazing technologies. There's a hospital I've talked to that's very close to where I live, and they have just got an amazing setup because of the redundancy they have to have. Is they're constantly thinking about outages. They're constantly thinking about keeping everything up and running. It's a challenge, but they have to have a plan, and it's remarkable the things they're doing with it, Syed. So that's, you don't have to hold a scalpel, but you can have just as much importance to getting those healthcare jobs done on the network side. Incredibly important. Syed says, I live outside a hospital where my mom works. I'm always talking to the IT department. Keep doing what you're doing. See if they need some help. See if they need somebody to do a little bit of work, and working on those. Just as I don't want to talk too much about this specifically, but Stang in the chat room, who says, I work in healthcare IT. The biggest drawback is the physicians who act like they are gods. It's ridiculous. Well, they are very knowledgeable, these very fine physicians. We have to pet them nicely on the head because they are billing big numbers back to the hospital. And that is an important part of it, of course. But as I will tell you, it's not just in hospitals. I have met people in every line of work who act like they are gods. So The funny part is the moment you treat them like they are gods, even though you know they aren't, is the best feeling in the world. It really is. They get so happy, but you know you're just sort of feeding them into what they're doing. But it's also the case, by the way, that when you're at a level where the things you are doing have such an importance at a minute-by-minute level to people's lives, then you at some point need to ask other people to step up at times. You really have to bring people in, because sometimes you will run across someone who doesn't have the same level of urgency that you know a particular situation requires. And you do have to be a little forthright with them to say, no, we got to do this now. You got to do this immediately. I need somebody to jump on it. You need to be the person to jump on it. What you really want to be in those situations is that person that jumps on it. The better you can facilitate those people being able to get their job done and make your boss happy. In this case, not even your boss, but the people that make your boss unhappy, make them happy, which then makes your boss happy. It's interesting how you can sometimes turn this around. And in fact, the more you invest yourself in the stresses that they're going through, the better you can understand why they're wanting to have something done with such an aggressive nature. You actually take more ownership of it and you start to understand more where they're coming from. There is a reason they act that way. Not all doctors are jerks. Some are. Some people are just jerks to be jerks, but that you don't have to be a doctor for that. Trust me. I've worked in many different areas of the world, many different segments, many different vertical markets. People can be kind of dummies wherever you go. That's okay. You just kind of, all right, yeah, I got you. What do you need? I will make this work for you. You just sort of throw the emotion out and you work with the task. What do you need done? We will get this done immediately. I'll have this done as fast as we can get this done. Is that gonna work with what we need to do? Yes. Okay, we'll make that happen. I mean, I will tell you at that level, when you're dealing with doctors, they make a lot of money. There is an expectation they have of everyone else and a frustration they have when other people don't have the expectation, that if you can get on board with the expectation, things will go much smoother for everyone. And at the end of the day, you got to do the job anyway. Why are you fighting them? You're still going to have to do the job. Do you want to do the job fighting them, or do you want to do the job with them? That's the real difference. And it makes sense. Makes sense. I want to, okay, we'll take one more here. I know I'm sort of hitting the 3-hour mark on this one. Are there any entry-level IT jobs that aren't as boring as help desk or next step after help desk? I would dismiss the tone of the question, dismiss this and say, I don't think help desk jobs are boring. I think they can be at times repetitive, but I think the help desk is where you should be a sponge. You should be looking at all of these different parts of the organization, because I would say that as a technologist, fixing someone's password is a relatively easy thing to do. Okay, what's your username? We have a process. Prove you're you. Okay, let me change this. Give it a shot. Can you log in? Yep, great. Done. Now, I guess that could be boring. I guess that could be monotonous over time. But your goal in the help desk is to look around at what everybody else is doing in IT, and the rest of the organization for that matter, is seeing what are the desktop people doing? What are the server folks doing? What are the cloud teams doing? What are the networking teams doing? What is security doing? What about databases? What about this? What about, just go through the whole list of all the different departments in IT. You're in a position now where your job should be boring enough that you can now spend some time doing recon. You could start collecting data and find out, that looks interesting. The stuff they're doing on the cloud looks really interesting. I want to do more cloud stuff. Let's start figuring out, oh wait, I got to call first. I got to do a password. Okay. All right, let's go back to cloud stuff. Now the cloud things let's do more cloud. Or maybe it's the network, or maybe it's databases, or maybe it's servers, or maybe it's whatever it is. there's really the important part of the help desk is it gives you a chance to sit back and really understand all of these different tasks that are going on, learning more about what they do day to day, understanding who they are as people, because that's going to help you if you want a job in that area. But this should be your chance to show your managers and everyone else how well you can communicate and work with other people. They're giving you a tryout. These help desk jobs can be a bit rote at times, but they're a chance for you to show how well you are at communication, because they're the technical part of it, not very difficult. The hardest part of IT, the hardest part you will ever find with IT, is humans talking to other humans. Isn't that ironic? That is the hardest part of IT. That is the most challenging part of IT. That's the part of IT I failed the most, is interpersonal communication. It's the part I have succeeded the most, is interpersonal communication. Probably because you failed the most. You really need some good, strong failures in your career. You need to really hit bottom hard a couple of times because it teaches you so much. Just remember that the next time that something bad is happening with your career, that this too shall change. This too shall be different on the next day. All of those teach you something eventually. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but eventually you look back and go, I learned something from that. I'm going to do that again. Here's how we're going to do it next time. And that's the way you grow in your position. That's the way you grow in technology. It's a non-technical answer for something that's horribly technical. But every time I have ever run across a challenging problem, it is almost always made better by how the communication is handled. Almost always. So we talk about the doctors that think they're God. That's just because you're not treating them right. You're not engaged with them. You're engaged against them. The more times you can engage with a customer, you can be their partner and work with them, it really changes the dynamic. You're on their team. You're able to make things happen. And it's not because they yelled a lot or they stomped their feet, because sometimes they do yell and sometimes they stomp their feet. You need to disconnect yourself from that. We're taught as humans to be emotional. And then the moment we go into the workplace, the emotion causes problems for us. Oh, somebody's yelling. What do we do? Just take that part out of it. I guess part of it's, I've been on the internet for so long, you really can't say anything to me at this point. There's nothing you can tell me that's going to make me upset about anything. We just kind of laugh at it and we keep moving. Like, oh, that's thank you for yelling. Now, what can I do to fix your problem? That's the key. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to stop. It's not about technology. Sometimes it's about humans, and sometimes you can make the world different just because of the way you act, not react. That's the important part of it. So I know an oddly non-technical end to a very technical study group, but in the end of the day, it's your ability to combine those things together that is going to really dictate what you do in IT and how far you go. So spend as much time on talking with people, sometimes communicating with people. Sometimes it's just email. Have an email done in a way that engages people rather than pushes people away. That's the way we work with it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Yeah, we had a little hit. That's okay. You're going to be all right because we're back. YouTube does this from time to time. YouTube loves to do this. Right when I'm saying something important, YouTube hits us. That's okay. We're pretty much at the end of what we were doing anyway. Thanks to you, though. We had that great first hour of Q&A. We had even better 2 hours of an after show, which tends to happen now more and more often. We've got another one of these on Thursday as we sit here Tuesday. So 2 days later, we will be back. We would love to have you join us. Come stop back in. We got a lot more to go through for our 2/20/11/02 study group on Thursday. We'll do this all over again. Thank you for your support, everybody who participated today. We thank you for being here. Those of you that provided some super chats, thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this without any of you, and we're so glad that you're here to join us. Thanks for being with us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.